Here's an impossible thing. Why don't you go out and fail? You say, here's something worth going after. Here's a step you could take that would push you beyond where you are. But
so that's why I look at graphs, right? Because numbers don't lie, people lie.
So how do you start making an upside of what could be perceived crisis?
Right.
When and how we do that is really one of the keys to.
If you want to become rich, you've got to start thinking about your mindset because it's probably holding you back. In this video, we break down the things you need to change in order to attract wealth. If you like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like right now, and comment your key takeaways in the comments below.
Values are really important to you. Identity and responsibility are important to you. Why do you think it's so hard for the younger generation, the millennials? Why is it so hard for them to find their identity, take responsibility, and develop values? And what advice would you have for the youth on how to find all three?
Yeah. Look, I'm going to go back to a version of saying too many options can make a tyrant of any of us. Look at the world that a lot of our young people are living in. We're all connected, but nobody's with each other. Their world is massive. They have more outreach than any of us ever have, but they're more isolated than ever before. So it's inevitable, human nature. Me, I'm betting you. I feel sound with myself. My spirit feels good. I got 3 children and a wife. But even I'll have a different reaction if you give me a thumbs up on my comment or a thumbs down.
Even you, the great Matthew McConaughey.
Even if it's just, well, wait, what was that about? Is that, was that a constructive criticism, or do you just not like me? Were you going to put a thumbs down anyway, or what was the thumbs up about? It can affect you. And so a lot of our youth is living in that world where their emotional feelings about themselves and their own identity is based off your reaction, strangers' reactions, some of them which may not have even read or cared about what you were actually putting out and didn't care about the intent. And that can affect you. I'm not saying, and so I think there's a responsibility to that world that to whatever extent the millennials live in it. There needs to be, they need to edit and govern back themselves with what they allow themselves to be out there, how proverbial naked they are, to like, I'm sharing it all with the world. I'm sending it out to a bunch of strangers. And they're going to come back to me and let me know who I am.
Wow.
No. Check in. And remember this, you millennials. That like, dislike comment that you put today, that's going to outlive you. It's immortal. It's permanent. You and I are not permanent. That comment is. Think about before you click and what you put out. Are you putting out something today that you're going to look forward to looking back at? Are you putting out something today in your resume of life that is going to write your eulogy after you're gone, which is going to introduce you forever when you're gone? Think about it.
How did you, you've done, it seems like 1 million movies, so many big hits, but there were some that got some controversial feedback or bad reviews, right? There was different stages that you had. How did you handle it as a creator, as an artist, as an actor, when you got negative reviews or when it didn't hit the expectation of the box office or whatever you guys had? How did you deal with that to say, you know what, I'm not going to let the opinions of others bring me down?
Well, they did bring me down sometimes, I have to admit.
Really?
Look, my favorite word in the world is unanimous. I know I'm never going to get it. There's no such thing, but that's still what I'm chasing. And I know I'm never going to get it. So I'll be underwhelmed for the rest of life. And that'll be fine if I keep enjoying the chase, right? I did this exercise one time. I sat down and I had my publicist gather every bad review over 20 years of work. Not the good review, the bad review. And it was a thick, it was a thick folder.
It's a big book.
In ways, it was more constructive than reading the good reviews. There were some people I could read that, oh, they already didn't like me. This review was written poorly before they even saw the movie. I could just tell. You could hear the snark in the opening comment. There were other ones that had constructive things to say. No, McConaughey, this is what I love about you, that you do, that is quintessentially you. And you didn't, I don't know who you were trying to be in this. You missed the mark. You didn't give you that heart that you give, or something that I could say is essential that I can give to every role, no matter what I'm playing. So some of it was very constructive, and I went, you're right. You're right. And had to go back, look in my diaries during those movies. What was I doing? What was I eating? Who was I hanging out with? Where was my mind? How was I feeling about this? Was I working hard enough? Did I prepare enough? Did I get complacent? Oh, yeah, you did. You got complacent there. You thought you had it going. And that's kind of that's actually the scene that this critic's pulling out, saying, you lost me right there, McConaughey. And I'm like, yeah, I was lazy in that scene. So other times, there was a real pivotal time in my life when I was on a roll with the romantic comedies.
Crushing.
Love doing those. Crushing the rom-coms.
Like a 10-year-old, just like boom, boom, boom.
Took the baton from Hugh Grant and turned up the speed.
Let's go, baby.
It was great, man. They're fun. I was getting paid handsomely. They were making a lot of money. What the challenge became, though, that was only thing I was getting offered. Ooh. Like, with the success of those, any dramas I wanted to do, the opportunity to do those became less and less and less and less, until it was like, no, McConaughey is the shirtless on the beach rom-com guy. And I remember looking in the mirror going, okay. And yes, I'm shirtless on the beach because those rom-coms are paying the rent for the house I've got on the beach that I'm running shirtless on. Yes, I worked to get that. Yeah. I looked that in the eye. In fact, that is me. Now, that does not mean that it didn't become a thing that became like a pigeonhole. Oh, that's all McConaughey is and does. And it was a time in my life where Camilla and I just had our first child. So, do you have children?
No kids, not yet.
You'll see when and if you do. Mm-hmm. A man is never more masculine than right after the birth of his first child, and I don't mean macho. I mean the clarity, that Autobahn we're talking about mind, heart, spirit, and loins. It is so clear. The first 6 months after your newborn, don't double down, triple down on any instinct you have, career-wise, relationship-wise, anything. Stock market, just triple down on them. You'll be right. It's an incredible time. Anyway, I had just had a newborn. Camilla had the newborn. So my life was so vital, man. I mean, I was loving harder. Had more rage in the right places. I would get sad more. My emotions, the ceilings and the basements were really incredibly vital. And the rom-coms have a much thinner bandwidth for those emotions, how you can feel about something. The ceiling and the basement are compressed quite a bit, and that's how they're built. Mm-hmm. They're built, you're supposed to bounce along the clouds. They're built to be buoyant. And I was like, I wish I could find some work that would challenge the vitality and great drama I have in my own life. Those things weren't coming to me. So since those things weren't coming to me, I decided to stop doing what I was doing, which was the rom-coms. Now, I'm figuring this is going to be a bit of a dry spell in my career, but I don't know for how long. I shed many a tear on the shoulder of my wife talking about, you know what, I want to make a change. I want my career some work to challenge the man I am, to challenge the life that I'm living. But I mean, that means I'm not going to go with work for a while. I call my money man. He says, you can take off. You've handled your money well. I call my agent. He goes, do it. I work for you. We got to go ahead. And then I stopped. I said, I moved down to Texas. You didn't see me on the beach. You didn't see me in the rom-com. You didn't see me in the tabloids. You didn't see me anywhere. Rom-coms kept coming in as offers. Nope, 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 nope. And then one comes in, an $8 million offer. Let me have a read of this one. I read it. Pretty good. No, thank you. Pass. They come back with a $10 million offer. No, thank you. They come back with a $12.5 million offer. No thanks. They come back with a $15 million offer. I say, let me read that again. I read it again. Same script, word for word as the original $8 million offer. But at $15 million, ooh, it was written so much better.
It looks good, doesn't it?
It was more dramatic. I got angles on this. I can make this work. Oh, yeah. I ended up saying no. And that really got the message across to the industry. Okay, McConaughey's serious. He's not doing any rom-coms. Then nothing came in for about 10 months. Nothing. Dry as a bone. And after 20 months of a desert and nothing coming in and saying no, first saying no to what I was doing and then nothing coming in at all of a sudden, I became a new good idea. McConaughey for Killer Joe. Magic Mike, Mud, True Detective, all of a sudden, that was a new novel. Good idea. Why? Because I'd unbranded. I had stepped away and I was gone. They didn't know where I was. Couldn't find me on the beach without my shirt. You couldn't find me in a rom-com. And I became a new good idea. So that's kind of the most dramatic sort of hinge point in my career that deals with how I dealt with, how I was perceived or what I was doing in my career.
This is a very important question. If it was 25 million, would you have done it?
No, I wouldn't have done it for 100 million.
Wow.
I'd already made the Socratic oath with my
You were
soul.
committed.
I was in. If it would, I would have got more excited. The fact that the money went up, it was such a buzz to even have the courage to say no to it. And it empowered me to go,
That's cool because you go back to your values and your identity of like, no, that's not who I want to be anymore. This is who I want to be. You call it unbranding. Is that what you said?
Unbranded. Yeah. I unbranded to then rebrand.
Yeah. I think that's powerful. It's like, we should always be in a stage of reinvention. You reinvented yourself as a father, you reinvented yourself as an actor. And I think that's really powerful. Good for you, man. It's hard to turn away those checks.
Yeah. Well, I'd saved my money well. I was appreciating the basics, had a roof over my head. I would have found, I honestly, in that 2 years, I considered other vocations. I considered other careers.
Like what?
During that time. Coach, a high school football team, a teacher, 4th grade teacher, orchestral conducting, wildlife guide, I did a lot of writing at the time. Didn't have a book to put out at that time. I did a lot of writing at the time. I didn't have the confidence to think the writing was worth publishing, but I was still doing a lot of writing at the time.
So if you would have not gotten the dramatic roles that you were looking for after 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you would have gone and been a high school football coach or a writer or a wildlife guide for 60 to 80 grand a year and been just as happy?
Well, I'm pretty sure. I'm almost definite. I would have been just as happy because one of the central themes in the book is that when faced with the inevitable, get relative. That's really one of the key tools in the book is how do you get relative when you deem a situation inevitable? So how do you start making an upside of what could be perceived crisis? Right. When and how we do that is really one of the keys to satisfaction in life. If you do it too early, okay, if I say for that instance, if I had said, okay, it's been 2 years, that's enough, I'm going off to do something else. Well, that would have been the wrong choice because I would have been a quitter. Look what happened. I just had to outlast him and it'd take 20 months. If I'd have pulled the plug at 18 months and done something different, I would have been a quitter, right? I didn't endure enough. But there's also situations that you can bang your head on through endurance where you're actually acting out the definition of insanity. You're trying to get something done the same way over and over and over and not getting the results you want. So you need to back up and, relatively speaking, pivot. Wait, let me reapproach this situation. Maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way. Let me pivot. Then there's other times you just got to wave the white flag and say, you got it, you win. I'm going to go fight another battle up here. So when do we do one of those, each one of those with every given situation? That's sort of the honey hole, the tool that really, I think can be helpful to us.
What do you think people struggle with the most in making money? Is it that
I think they're trying to find what they love. Everybody's going for what they love, the love thing. This is another misnomer in our society.
Because you made a lot of money doing something you didn't love.
Exactly. Everybody's like, find something you love. The money will. Tom told that to somebody yesterday at Starbucks. Tom works with me, and some dude just got off the shift at Chevron, 12-hour shift, and then my guy Tom, who helps us around the family, is giving this guy Chevron advice about, dude, don't take that job, go do something you love. I'm like, you don't even know what you're talking about, Tom. Quit telling people shit. Okay, you got no business. You're security here, bro. Okay, don't give people advice like that. That's dumb. He's like, why is it dumb? I said, bro, you can't just do what you love. People have to do the other stuff, man. We wouldn't have a military, man. There would be no Marines, no Navy, no Coast Guard, no policemen, no firemen if all you did was what you loved, right? Somebody's got to do the dirty stuff, man. Somebody's got to do the hard stuff. So I think, and this is where I'm trying to be more Lewis House, graceful. I think, that people should follow freedom, man. That freedom. And in that freedom, in that chapter on freedom would be, you ain't getting freedom without money. It's just not going to happen. And so,
do the thing that can make you the most money, and if you
can
do it, and if you love it as well, then it's a bonus.
At least you'll have some options with the stuff you love. Okay, Van Gogh loved art. He never told anybody about it. Selfish, completely selfish. Okay, so many artists go down like this. I'm an artist. I'm not a salesman, dude. You died and sold one piece of art. Okay, what a damn shame. Okay, how can you produce such unbelievable works and never tell anybody about it? Because you're so freaking self-centered and selfish, okay, and so introverted into self that you're not willing to go out and say, look at this, right? Oh, I don't want to brag. Again, you're talking about yourself. The guy's selfish. All these people say, well, I'm an introvert. You're selfish, man. Let's call it what it is. Because when you're talking about your introversion, you're assuming no one else is. You're saying that it's not easy for anybody, like it's not easy for you, but everybody else it is. Everything is about yourself right now when you're saying that. I don't like sales. Selfish. I don't like talking to people. Selfish. I don't like public speaking. You're talking about yourself again, dude. I don't need money. You're selfish, dude. Okay? Your church, your community, the kids, people need money. Okay? Well, that's not who I am. You're talking about yourself again. See, and like I could quit working right now. I don't need to do this today. Financially, I'm done. I can't exhaust it. But it would be selfish of me to stop, right? Elon Musk, he's an unselfish dude. That's what I know about him for sure. He's a genius and he's unselfish. Perfect combination.
He's trying to move the world forward.
Yeah.
With his gifts, his talents.
Yeah. He didn't have to do that.
Yeah. He's made a lot of money.
Yeah. Mark Cuban's on TV all the time. By the way, all these super, super successful dudes, they're completely doing what your parents said not to do. Getting a lot of attention, right? I mean, why is Mark Cuban on TV 3 or 4 or 5 times a week?
Right.
Okay, and then we'll take every interview they give him.
Yeah.
Because he knows attention equals freedom. Attention equals I can start moving the bar here on the way people do things. Not just money, right? But power and influence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get bored if you just stop today anyways.
Yeah, dude,
you get a lot of trouble. You said she won't let you stop, right?
She won't. She keeps pushing on me.
Yeah.
Because she knows if I know. That was a good piece that came out in the thing the other night. But it was Elena pushes me. Elena's the one. She's the one that wants me to be a billionaire. I don't really think about it that much.
Really?
I think it's kind of stupid. but because what are you going to do with it?
Right.
She's the one that says, no, you need to do it. Really, why? I mean, it's a number. It's ridiculous. You can't spend that much money, right? And she's like, no, you need to do it because you can. 1, you're close. 2, you can. And 3, you need a goal so big, right? That you're chasing that you're so interested in that you're excited and you're living and you're youthful and you got a lot of, and by the way, you're not consuming meat. You don't turn into a carnivore because you're bored. And she's right, because every time in my life when I'm bored, I become destructive.
You get nasty, negative.
I get nasty, dude.
Really?
I get nasty. Because I'm not being productive, man. I think work is a gift, is the gift that doesn't look like a gift from God. That people all talk about. They don't want to work. They hate work. They hate their job. Dude, I love my jobs. I love jobs. I love having a place to work. I've been out of work. I'll take any job. I'd rather any job than no job. I'd go flip hamburgers. I like doing dirty jobs. Micro, I love Micro, because he'll do the dirty job.
Yeah.
And I trust people that will do dirty jobs. And I don't trust people that's like, oh, J-O-B, just over broke. Dude, you're broke now. If you even know that freaking term, you're broke now.
Right.
Okay?
Wow. What's the thing that you think about the most that most people don't know about?
Probably dying.
What do you think about?
Dude, running out of time. I'm not worried about dying. I'm worried about just running out of time. Like, damn,
Running out of time to do what?
for anybody to know me, to have made a difference. Like, my dad died when he was 52. So he had just, what he thought was just made it. He just made it. Him and my mom were like celebrating. Oh, we made it. He bought the house he wanted. And 18 months later, he was dead. So, and then I watched my older brother, he was 25, I guess. I was 20. He was 25. He died when he was 25. And I'm like, dude, man, this thing's short. This runway's short.
Your older brother died at 25.
He was, I'm talking to him Sunday night, getting advice from him. I'm 20. I was in Lake Charles, Louisiana. He was in Grand Junction, Colorado on a Sunday night. I said, man, you think I should do it, man? You think I should do it? He's like, don't do it, man. Don't do it. He was dead the next morning. So I just, like, my whole life, I'm 59. Dude, I've been thinking I was going to die since I was like 18. Like, okay, I got a couple more years.
Wow.
So you'll see me like, I still have this. I'm in a hurry to get someplace.
Urgency. I think life is now.
Push. Huh?
Life is now. It's not 10 years from now.
That's right. That's right.
Now is the time to make a decision. Now is the time to push. Now is the time to be more aggressive and go for what you want.
Yeah.
And get freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. And 10 years from now, the results of what you get 10 years from now is going to be what you did right now.
Yeah.
So like in my office, everything is now, Hey, did you send that deal in? No, I'm going to get to it. No, you ain't going to get to it, dude. We're going to do it right now.
Right.
Let's do it right now.
Yeah.
And I think I shared something with your group the other night about anytime the people that work with me are overwhelmed, we add something.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Because it proves to everybody, dude.
You're not overwhelmed.
Come on, you're in drama, dude. You're being like a little girl right now.
Right.
Okay. Ladies, please don't take offense to that. I love little girls. Okay. I have 2 of them, and they're like princesses. But I teach my little girls, don't act like a little girl. Sometimes you got to throw her down, dude.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And I love how you do every single day. Everything is measured and everything is tracked and everything is talked about publicly with your team. I think you said you have 50 or 60 people on the team.
Yeah.
So at 9:05 every single morning, the whole team is there. What if someone's late? Is that okay, or is it? No. So everyone's there. 9:05.
Yeah, I think that happens twice. Second time you're dead.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
So everyone's there, and then you list out a number of stats, right? And what are some of the things you guys list out?
Everything that would be validation of success. So like your wall here, right? All the people that came in here, that's a validation. That's a reminder. Hey, this is working. We don't talk about anything negative in the meeting. 0. No administrative. Turn in your. Somebody mentioned the insurance or the carrier or something like that. We don't do that in this meeting. Okay, This meeting is
results
about
meeting.
All the battles we won. Okay, if 17 people died, that will not be reported in this meeting. This is going to be all the hills that we took. Right, so. It's going to be YouTube views. It's going to be Instagram followers, all the way down to calls, contacts, call time. Like we hit every front. We'll knock on a door. We'll call cold. We'll use technology.
Mm-hmm. Everything. You say sales numbers from the previous day as well.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah. And I loved how you said that you're constantly looking to execute people. Is that right? I think I said it how you said it.
Totally. That's
so if it's not going up,
they call me General Grant.
General Grant. If sales are not going up or numbers are not going up, then you're looking for.
We look for somebody that we. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
But you're good.
No, we look for somebody to execute. So we do not tolerate a flat number. So if I go to a company, I'm like, "How you guys doing?" Oh man, we're on track to do what we did last quarter. You're dying, dude. You understand you're dying, right? You know, that you can't keep a flat line. A flat line, gravity will pull a flat line down. So all flat lines are death, basically.
Wow.
You know, that's flat line. He's flatlining. You know, so flat lines for me, like I'm dying. And I've been there, by the way. I had a couple companies actually. I let flatline for a while, and I paid the price of that. So I'm like, I'll never let that happen.
I think it's also like a psychological thing. You just get less inspired. You're less motivated. You're not seeing growth.
Totally, dude. You know, and this is happened in newspapers. It's happened in TV. Happened to Macy's. And nobody wants to pay attention to it. You know, it happened to Blockbuster. They just kept saying for years, no, it's coming back. We're coming back. No, you're not, dude. It's over. Okay. So flat lines are also for households in America. By the way, economy defined is the management of a household by definition. And the reason I say this is because when I'm talking about graphs right now, I have this visual image of the graph of the median income in America, and it's going just like this. It was flat for years. It was doing like this for back in the 50s and 60s. And then all of a sudden it flattened out, and now it's doing this.
Really?
It's in this major emergency trend right here.
Wow.
And it's been like this for like 18 years now, just like doing just like this. You can't reverse this trend, by the way. It's too many people responsible for it.
Wow.
So people need to be, this is the middle class that everybody thinks is safe. Okay? If they told you the truth, they would say this is a poverty line today. Because that's what it will be tomorrow.
Wow.
So, and these are the people, 76% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So they're not looking at this graph. They're like, I'm better off than the guy that's homeless because I got my 2 BMWs and I got my 2 kids going to 2 good schools in debt on both.
They're all in debt. Yeah.
Like up to here, right? Oh, but my house, it's almost paid for in 15 years. It's going to be paid for. Dude, those are 3 major scams in America. The house puffed up the banks, right? The schools, the college debt, $1.3 trillion. Tremendous amount of Wall Street money sitting there. That's all pension fund money. But everybody's denying this graph right here because we're better off than people in Ethiopia. So that's why I look at graphs, right? Because numbers don't lie. People lie.
Yeah.
Numbers don't lie.
Let's talk about the 4 E's. What is this principle of the 4 E's that you talk about in your book?
Yeah. So I like to break up my life in quadrants, and I help my students. I do a lot of coaching. I do personal development and professional development coaching. And no matter where you come to me, whether you come to me for personal development or whether you want to turn your passion into profit in this professional development and business development for entrepreneurs, we go over the 4 E's because abundance is holistic. It's a holistic experience. So the first is enrichment of self, that you are only going to go as far as you think you're worthy. I can push, you can have the greatest product, but if you don't feel worthy, you will work hard to sabotage that relationship. You don't know you're doing it. Right. You don't know you're doing it. You just think these are the things I need, and you're driving that guy away. You're driving that woman away because your self-worth says they weren't going to stay forever anyway. Or self-worth around money. You have a cap that you feel like you're worthy of $1 million. You will always get to 999,000 and you will stop because your self-worth says it. So enrichment is number 1.
What's a good exercise or process that we can follow on a daily basis, maybe something simple, to enhance our enrichment and worthiness?
Absolutely. I did this for 6 months, every single day right after I brushed my teeth. And it's the ICU exercise. And you get in the mirror now. It's not necessarily simple because you're dealing with yourself.
Of course.
And as complicated as you are will be the degree
of the mechanics of it are simple.
The mechanics are very simple. Yes, I appreciate that distinction. You get in the mirror and you complete 3 different sentences. You want to write this down. The first sentence, you look at yourself and you say your name. So you say Lewis, and you complete this as I'm proud that you. And find 7 different things every day to celebrate yourself for. 7 different. Each day you can do the same thing you did the day before, but each day do 7 different things to be proud of. The second sentence is going to knock you down a little bit. It's going to come from your gut. Lewis, I forgive you for. And cut the shackles to blame, shame, guilt, regret, and anger. In that sentence, you cut those 5 shackles. Not the first day, maybe not the 3rd day, but by the 21st day, by the 13th day, you'll feel some relief. So, Lewis, I forgive you for. And go back 5 years, 15 years, 20 years. Do that. Forgive you for that thing don't nobody know about but you. Go ahead and cut those shackles. Because if you can still think about it, it's still in your energy space.
Yeah.
And then the 3rd sentence is, Lewis, I commit to you that. Before you make a commitment to anybody else throughout your day, you make 7 commitments to you. So the first sentence is, I'm proud that you're celebrating yourself first. We are under-celebrated as a society. We look for acknowledgement. They interviewed 100 executives that all made over $250,000 and said, would you like a 5% raise next year, or would you rather be told thank you more often? 100% said, keep your money. I'd rather hear thank you. So we're under-celebrated. But first, celebrate you.
Yeah.
Be the example. When I was on Oprah, when she said, what do you do? I said, I recognize that I'm the example of how the rest of the world is supposed to treat me. And it's my job to give the world the best example of how I like to be treated.
Right.
So celebrate yourself, forgive yourself, cut the shackles, and then commit to yourself before you commit to anyone else. That right there,
Powerful.
that right there will begin to fill your cup up to get to your saucer.
I love that. Where did you start to learn that process? Was that something you just started to practice yourself and started looking in the mirror and trying different things? And
You asked the question. I was in a relationship, engaged to be married, and it became abusive. I was emotionally abused, and then he picked me up and threw me 3 feet across the room and choked me until I passed out. I don't tell a lot of people that. And I was suffering with post-traumatic stress disorder. And my mother asked me to go to the doctor, strongly recommended I go to the doctor, drug me to the doctor.
wow.
And after the assessment of me in Manhattan Beach, my doctor said that I was clinically depressed. And I said, how did I get here? Me? That don't even fit with my name. I was head cheerleader at my high school. I was the captain of the track team. I'm always the person to get people going. It didn't fit. How did I get here? I don't know if you've ever found yourself saying, how did I get here? I was sitting on the table in the doctor's office saying, how did I get here? And when she wrote me the prescription, she handed me the prescription. And I read the prescription, and it said, Lisa Nichols Prozac. It was like I was looking at a foreign statement, my name and Prozac. And I asked her, I said, can I try something for 30 days? Because I realized I was just sad. I lost me. I had lost me in him. I had lost me in being a mother. I had lost me in being the mother of a son whose father was in prison and trying to hide that shame and then trying to make this man happy and then beginning to fend for my life. I lost me. So I needed to discover me. I needed to remind myself who I was. And so I just realized I didn't celebrate me. I was beating myself up. I was really mad at me. And I was showing up for everyone else. So I just made up these sentences. And I did it to rescue myself, to turn my crawl into a walk. And I ultimately was able to turn my crawl into a walk, and my walk into a run, and my run into a soar. But it started as a crawl. So I don't offer the how I got to that exercise often unless someone asks. Thank you very much,
You're welcome.
my darling.
Thanks for sharing.
And yeah,
and opening up.
I've long since learned 4 things. To me, this is the road to true freedom. I have nothing to prove. I have nothing to protect. I have nothing to hide. And I have nothing to defend. That your perception of me after I tell my truth is actually none of my business. My perception of me, that I go to bed as whole and complete as I woke up. Before I check how many likes I have on Facebook, that I like me first. And every other like is bonus.
There you go.
Like it. That was a long road to get to. Long road.
Sure.
Long road.
Yeah. And we probably have to constantly be reminded of it,
And then
we get in that place.
And then when I live like I'm forgetting, you have to have accountability partners stashed in the corners of your life. And you have to give them an assignment on your high day.
Yeah.
You have to give them an assignment on your high day. If I look like I'm slipping,
Well, my ego's in the way.
get in my face. Get in my face.
Check me.
Right. Get in my face and remind
Yeah.
me of the man,
Yeah.
of the woman I said I wanted to be. Don't let me off the hook for the 2020 version of me.
Because we're humans. It's going to happen.
Man.
As long as we're breathing, we're going to be
Man.
out of integrity at some
Man,
point.
Come on.
Yeah.
Your humanity's going to get in the way. Your
Exactly.
ego, or ladies, your she-go is going to get hooked.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Your resentment, your
Absolutely.
your
Smallness,
everything,
just
yeah.
smallness. It all fits in
Exactly.
smallness.
Yeah.
I'm human,
Yeah.
and so I'm the best thing I did was to keep people around me to
Yeah.
hold me accountable to the woman I said I want to become.
Sure. That's great. I love that. That's why I have a lot of people from the Midwest who work with me on my team to support me, keep me grounded.
Right. Like, don't get too Hollywood.
Exactly.
Dude. Don't get caught up in the lights and the cameras and the
No.
daggone headset.
Exactly. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Okay, enrichment. That's the first part. The second part is enchantment.
Relationships are going to define the quality of your life.
Mm-hmm.
When you're on your bed on your last days, you're going to want to know who's going to be around you. Bottom line, you're not going to care about another podcast.
No.
You're not going to care about another sponsor.
The
I'm
book
not
you
going to
came
care about
out
another
with.
book
Yeah,
or
yeah.
the freaking New York Times bestseller. It matters to us now.
Yeah.
But the relationships in your life are going to determine the quality of your life. And so mind your relationships. And so in the book Abundance Now, I teach you how to heal broken relationships that matter to you. How to get back level set. I give you this great tool called it's a conversation to heal a broken experience. So it's called a communication charter. I use it in my company. I use it at my house.
Yeah.
And so just is about how do I keep great relationships. And then the third area is engagement, work engagement. You're going to spend so much time in work, and we're so emotionally attached to our work. And most of the time people are attached in such a dismal way that why would you have that dismal energy around something you're going to spend so many hours in? So I teach you how to shift your energy toward your work so that you no longer look at it as your work. Now it's no longer your JOB. Like everyone in my community, everyone in my tribe, they no longer say they have a job. They say, I have an investor. And when you look at your job as your investor and you really rename it as your investor, and it's investing in your breathtaking future, it has the capacity to buy anything you want for your future if you mind your money right. Right? It can buy your freedom. And all of a sudden you start treating your investor better and you're more excited about going. Matter of fact, you're grateful.
Fun.
You're grateful for your investor.
Doesn't feel like work.
Man, my investor was LA Unified School District. That was a hard place to be when it was a job. I'm just telling you. But as an investor, for 3.5 years, I wrote myself a check. And I put in the memo line, funding my dream. I didn't even know what the dream was. I wasn't even clear. I just knew whatever my dream was, it was going to cost some money. And I needed to pay. And I need to have some money to pay. And that if I was going to ask other people to invest in me, I had to be my first investor. Who am I to ask someone to put money my way when I didn't put money my way?
Right.
So I wanted someone for them to match. Just match my investment in me. I got 10 in. Can you put 10 in? I got 20 in. Can you put 20 in? And so when you look at your job, your work engagement as an investor into your breathtaking life, all of a sudden there's a different energy around it.
Yeah.
And then the last one is money endowment. And to recognize more than the Dr. Seuss family and the Disney family and the McDonald's family and the Lawrence Welk family has a right to an endowment. When you get the understanding, and I really unpack it here, where you kind of go, what? Like I'll make you do a couple of Scooby-Doo looks in the book, like, roll. When you look and go, I can do an endowment, because we think it's for them. Remember, I started this conversation with abundance is for those people over there, especially when it comes to an endowment or a living legacy, like in your book, and creating a legacy. To recognize that, wait a minute, there's a Lewis endowment and a Lisa endowment and a Don and John and Tanya endowment and fill in the blank here endowment. And I need to live my life to set up my endowment. All of a sudden you become responsible for generations to come, responsible for changing the trajectory of your family's life. That's some bold stuff. When in your lifetime, you do a needlepoint move for your family. In my lifetime, I was able to do a needlepoint move for my son. Like he's a Nichols child. He's one of many Nichols men. But that's a Nichols man who now knows what it feels like to cook in Italy and in Tuscany and in Florence and in Venice and in Rome. That's a Nichols child who knows what it feels like to go surfing on the Gold Coast of Australia. That's a Nichols child who understands what it feels like to stand on the tallest mountain in Africa. Like his life. I asked him this morning, I said, Jelani, can you, when you get married and have children, can you stay in California so mommy can really see her grandchildren? He goes, well, Mom, that's kind of restrictive. It's restricted to stay in big California. It's like, Mom, it's kind of, because he knows the world.
Yeah.
His paradigm shift has occurred. He won't ever live like another, and he'll take everything he's learned and expand the Nichols male child experience. So in my generation, in my lifetime, I was able to change our family experience for him. And so I believe that we have a right to look at our legacy and create a living legacy, and then create a legacy.
What do you think about when you have a bad day, or when you have a bad moment, where you react and you're not on your game, where you're calm in a frustrating moment, or someone on your team does something you don't want, or traffic or whatever? How do you process that? Do you have bad days?
Yeah, I have not days. I have bad
Moments.
events. There's when I want to separate like behaviors and emotions. So usually when people say they're having a bad day, sure, certain things may have gone wrong, or something that they tried to do, didn't work out. All information and experiences are processed at the non-conscious brain first, and then it gives rise to something we call a feeling. So emotions are processed non-consciously. The electrical and chemical reaction to that is called a feeling. So when I'm not feeling the way that I want to feel, I don't focus on the feeling. I focus on the cause, the neuroelectrical charge that's occurred in my brain. And in most cases, it's something that you're doing to interpret an event that's causing the neuroelectrical signal, causing the feeling. So in meditation, for example, why do you meditate? Well, obviously, it's great for a whole host of health reasons, whether it's less stress, less lower blood pressure, less cortisol release, etc. But the one thing meditation does more than anything else is it gives you the ability to have a pause of awareness so that you sense what's happening at the non-conscious level.
Right.
And what's happening outside of you. So when somebody behaves a certain way, it's processed at the non-conscious level, gives rise to your conscious mind for you to respond. And so when something happens, I like to be able to check in so that I don't react and I have the ability to respond. And if you do that enough through mindfulness, being aware, just being aware of exactly what's going on, then you have fewer and fewer of those times. So, something happened last week. I was in a hotel room and I spilled some water on a shirt that I needed for a wedding that we were going to. And my wife was, oh, fuck, da, 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 da. She was going off deep and I was just calm.
Yeah.
And she goes, aren't you worried about this? I said, will it help?
Right.
Like, no, let's just figure out what to do. The accident already happened.
Why are we so wired to react in situations as opposed to be calm and say, well, this reaction is not going to serve a solution?
Well, we have a misunderstanding of flow of information and the way information is processed. And so the reaction happens, again, at the reptilian non-conscious level. So every external stimuli, if you get into some of the brain, which again is my passion, is one of my friends, Dr. Evian Gordon, came up with a great model. He says, the number one thing to understand about the brain is safety and comfort first, right? So in the environment that you're in, whether you like it or you don't, is irrelevant. Your brain finds that comfortable because it's the homeostasis. But safety first. So any loud noise, any type of real or imagined present or future pain based on the interpretation at the non-conscious level gives rise to automatic feelings. So the signal is sent from the reptilian or lizard brain to the emotional brain, and it's only later logically understood if we take the time
to be aware of it.
Be aware of it.
That's why people react so much in traffic instantly.
That's right.
Instant reactions.
Yeah, but here's something you could do quickly. It's called a reframe. So let's say you're driving in traffic, and let's say somebody cuts you off, and you've been sitting at the same spot for 20 minutes like I did this morning, and somebody you're maybe looking down at your cell phone because you have some time because you're parked on the highway, right? And somebody cuts you off. So you could automatically react, go, son of a bitch, I can't believe he just did that, and just use all of this energy, the cortisol, epinephrine, adrenaline that's flowing through your body and causing stress in your body. Or you can say, well, what if that person just found out their dog died and they're really trying to get home quickly? You go, oh, okay, I guess it's okay if she or he cut in front of me.
Right.
Or they just got a call from their mother their mother fell?
Yeah.
Would you change the way you felt about it? And the answer is, yeah, probably. And the reason, because you changed the frame. So you can learn how to create frames for yourself of how you see the world, how you see failure, how you see effort, how you see your habits, how you create frames in advance that actually serve you through awareness and response versus reactivity. Yeah. And that is what a lot of people who, for example, I'm going to go back to professional athlete. What do you learn how to do? Respond in a variety of different ways in advance or through practice, so that when it's game time, you're just unconsciously doing what you do.
Yeah, especially like, you know, I used to react a lot whenever I felt like anyone was attacking me physically or verbally in the game. I used to react and want to beat people up and hit people and respond. If I got hit in a weird way, I would always want to have the last say, right? The last hit. And my coaches would always train me because I would always get flagged. The second person is the one who gets flagged, not the first person who does the foul. Yeah. And so I started to train myself and visualize, okay, this is going to happen in this game. Like someone's going to punch me in the nuts. Someone's going to bite me. Someone's going to do this. And I can either be calm and focus on the next play, or I can respond and have a penalty for our team. Right. And I started to train my mind, seeing it in the future as it already is happening. And that really supported me in not reacting.
And that's actually one of the best ways. It's a cognitive behavior therapy process where you practice in advance anything good or anything challenging. And what's really amazing, some of the latest research on goal achieving, is the ability, you know, in the past, I used to teach and also do visualize my goals. Whether it was my body, health, relationships, money, charity, whatever. I used to visualize the outcome. And some of the latest research now shows, in addition to visualizing the outcome, visualize the obstacles. And in the past, when we talked about this law of attraction, no, don't visualize the obstacles, you attract them to it. No, your brain's way smarter than that. So if you have, whether it's a belief that's in your way, a story that's holding you back, a circumstance, references, you know, something that's holding you back from achieving X. So take a look at whatever it is that you already know is holding you back. I don't believe I'm worthy. I don't believe I'm smart enough. I don't believe I'm good enough. I don't believe I'm skilled enough. I'm too young, too old. I'm too this or too that, or not enough of this, not enough of that. So address that and say, okay, here's an obstacle. I'm going to visualize that obstacle being real, and I'm going to visualize just moving it aside and me moving towards my goal. The very act of acknowledging that releases the neural tension around it. If you do that over and over and over again, what your brain starts to see is, yes, there was a struggle, and so it's worthy of me creating this neural pattern around this new effort. Because most of what we're doing is, you know, we're on autopilot. We're just eking through the day, you know, on autopilot. And so the brain loves anything that makes it curious. The brain likes anything novel. The brain likes a challenge. So earlier you were asking me about, you know, one of the brain training companies other than ours. I said, does it work? I said, yeah, it's a workout for your brain. And if you can strengthen the neural patterns of you seeing yourself with an obstacle and overcoming it, what do you think that does to your self-confidence and certainty?
Builds it up big time.
Builds it up. So if you actually do the work and develop those patterns in your brain, as you're doing the stuff you need to do in the physical world, you just strengthen those neural patterns, and that's what becomes your habits. Yeah. And that's where it becomes really fun, because you can develop the habits and the skills that you need that you'll actually take action on versus having knowledge and skills in your head.
Now, I feel like you've been testing things for decades now with all the research and the work you've done. Yeah. So what does your morning routine look like now?
Oh, great.
What's, you know.
So today was a little bit different, except for one thing, because I drove from San Diego to LA to be with you. But I wake up, I pee, I do my meditation, 20 to 30 minutes every morning. I don't care where I am in the world. At
and what
least
do you
one
focus
a day.
On during that time?
I do a variety of different meditations. So there's meditations that I can do where I'm just observing my thoughts. Now, a lot of people think, well, I thought you're not supposed to have thoughts when you meditate. Says whom? There's hundreds of different ways to practice awareness. See, meditation is the art of awareness. Awareness internally, awareness externally, but also the various millions of layers that exist in the physical and the non-physical world. So this morning, I did a meditation with some ocean sounds. And so it was about 5 o'clock. I woke up this morning, sat in my little sofa, with my feet propped up, and did a 20-so-minute meditation in the dark with the ocean, just listening to the ocean, just paying attention and going into a trance-like state where after 2 or 3 minutes, I disappeared. Like my body was part of air and space. So today I was using sound to get into that trance-like state. Other days I'll do a mantra, whether it's, a lot of people know transcendental meditation. So it's the Om mantra. So you just take a deep breath in. And then as you exhale, it's Om. And the question is, why would you do that? And the answer is, anytime you can give your brain a rhythm, it will entrain to that rhythm. That's one. Anytime you could pay attention to your breath, inhale and exhale, you turn off the parasympathetic nervous system. You turn on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and relaxation and your calm state of flow, versus your sympathetic nervous system, which is the stress response system of adrenaline, norepinephrine, cortisol, etc. So when you get the serotonin, oxytocin, and dopamine going, and you're in that state of calmness, you're able to enter deeper levels of consciousness and awareness. So you're able to observe a thought. You're able to hear your heartbeat. You're able to sense different things that are being risen in your body through thoughts that you're having. So you can actually start to see, when I have this thought, here's the sensation in my body. And you start to get so attuned to what's happening, what stimuli is happening within you that's producing these sensations that cause you to either take action or not, retreat or move forward. You can start to get a feel for how the mechanics work. So I'll do that. Sometimes I'll put on some of the Tibetan monks and chant with them. So I use sound, no sound. I use breathing. I use open eye, closed eye, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. So I practice the art of being in control of my breath, not breathing, just being one with the entire universe and feeling this other than normal state of consciousness that we're used to. And it's not sleep, and it's not, conscious awareness. You're in an altered state of awareness, and you can enter deeper and deeper and deeper layers of energy, which everything is made up anyway. Everything's connected. We have this, obviously, our physical body, but the space between you and I right now, there's just vibrating packets of energy, right? And so you're able to access different layers of all of the intelligence and information that already exists in the universe versus the memories that we have in our brains. And that's magical.
I love this. Why are you so wired this way? What makes you so obsessed with this information and sharing it with 1 billion people?
When I was 5, 6, 7 years old, I moved from Israel to Montreal. I spoke Hebrew, but not English or French. And for 2.5 years, I felt dumb. I felt like I wasn't smart enough and I wasn't good enough, and I was made fun of as a kid. That led to me being involved in street gangs from the age of 12 to 16.
Wow. In Montreal?
In Montreal.
Wow.
We trafficked drugs from Florida. We did break-in entries. We had a little street gang, about 12 of us that just got into a lot of trouble. My path was either jail or the morgue, one of the two. And there's a lot of successful people that have that kind of a story for some strange reason. And at 19, I met a mentor. His name was Alan Brown. He was a real estate developer.
Still in Montreal?
No, this was I moved from Montreal after years of turbulence. I finally broke free and moved from Montreal to Toronto, which is about 350 miles.
Gotcha. In Canada still.
Canada, yeah. And May 1980, I took my real estate course. June 20th, 1980, I became licensed as a real estate agent. And the reason I did is I met a man the weekend before that my brother introduced me to, who was into personal development.
Yeah.
And he was into, Zig Ziglar and Dennis Waitley and Brian Tracy's, 35 years ago. And he introduced me to this world of the mind, introducing me to the world of changing my beliefs, changing my habits, changing my perceptions of first, who are you? And he really helped me see that, the spiritual greatness within everybody, the intelligence that's within everybody. He had me start with getting in touch with that. And it was very philosophical and didn't have the evidence that we have today on affirmations, visualization, meditation, mindfulness, subliminal programming, habit creation, in all of the different methodologies that we've all heard about, whether it was the astronauts that went to the moon initially that trained their brains, or the musicians that have, or the athletes that do. The science now is just so phenomenal on what is actually happening. And so as I was building my own companies, I built my companies by training my employees not on the skills that they needed, but on how spectacular they were as human beings. And the greatness was within them. And if they trained their brain to have the belief, that is, they may not have the skill or the know-how, but if you have the belief that I can, I will, I must.
You can build the habit.
You can build the habit. You can start to. If you think about this, I don't care if we asked any question on health, wealth, relationships, career, business, spirituality, we wanted to find the answer to something. We could Google it and within minutes have everything we want to know about it.
Tutorials, everything we need.
Tutorials, videos, audios, how to, step-by-step, blueprint, color coordinated, whatever you want. So our problem isn't how to. All the how to exists. How to build a business exists. How to be a great lover exists. You know, it all exists.
How to get in shape. Yes.
Right. So I wanted to focus on, how do I help more people take more of the action they know they should be and want to. And it all started in 1995 when 1992. After I, got into real estate and I traveled the world, I ended up buying the franchising rights for Remax for the state of Indiana. And I was 26 years old.
Wow.
And I bought the franchising rights for Indiana, moved to Indiana. Wow. And I remember being interviewed for the Indianapolis Business Journal. And the guy said, "What are your goals here in Indiana?" 26 years old. I was wearing, I remember a brown pinstripe suit. And I had glasses on, even though I didn't need glasses. I just wanted to look older. And I said, we'll do $1 billion in sales in Indiana. And the gentleman said to me, says, "Are you certain of that?" I said, "Well, that's my goal." He says, "Well, the two largest companies that have been here for 100 years don't do $100 million, or $1 billion combined." And my cocky young self, I said, "Well, we'll be the first." He's like, "What?" 3 weeks later, the Indianapolis Business Journal, and I have it at home, it says, "Sets $1 billion goal."
Wow.
May 1992, we hit $1 billion in sales 5 years later.
Wow.
And we were stuck, which is a great place to be stuck. But it wasn't because we didn't try hard. We were stuck because people started hitting the upper limits of their financial blueprint, the upper limits of their beliefs, the upper limits of their habitual ways of doing things. So regardless of how much more information we gave them, they just were at their limits.
Believe they can make more.
That's right. Well, and again, when we talk about beliefs, there's two types of beliefs. There's belief that I say to you, "Sure, I could do that. Oh, yeah, man, I want to do that." But if there's an opposing belief at the implicit part of the brain saying, "But you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, you're not worthy enough, you're afraid of failure, afraid of this, you're afraid of that," you won't do it because the non-conscious controls the entire game. And so we started to retrain our agents' brains after we did an event. 75 agents paid, I think it was $2,000 or $3,000 to go through a 6-month brain retraining program. Those 75 agents increased our sales by $100 million.
Wow.
And we said, okay, we're going to teach this to the entire company.
Yeah.
So we went from $1.2 billion to $4.5 billion in sales a year in 3 years by working on this versus what they needed to do. And so I became really pretty well versed in understanding a little bit about the brain. And then after I was retired in 2003, after building a couple of companies, I took Bamboo.com, we took public in 1999. And I wanted to just teach what I'd learned. And I started getting involved with some of the top neuroscientists, neuropsychologists in the world, quantum physicists, molecular biologists. I wanted to just understand the mechanics of how it all worked. So when I visualize in first person what's happening in my brain and where. When I visualize in third person what's happening in my brain and where. When I repeat an affirmation that I don't believe and I hear a little voice in my head saying, "Bullshit, why does that happen?" That's not true. And then what are the systems that get activated as soon as you believe it's not true? And then can we learn to override them? The answer is yeah, it's an organ. And we're just getting the user's manual now for better than ever before.
This is like the final frontier when we're talking about nutrition and health and where we're at with science right now. And the M is your microbiome makeup. The makeup of your microbiome has a massive impact on your body's association with calories. this is part of the lexicon now. I know just about everybody listening has probably heard of the microbiome, right? This incredible ecology, this dynamic plethora of microbes that inhabit our bodies, that are in and on our bodies. Even right now, dude, you got like 400 trillion viruses.
Yeah, I know.
The viruses are on people's mind.
Bugs.
Right.
All over the body.
All over.
Isn't that crazy?
400 trillion. And many of them are opportunistic, right? But that means that when you're compromised, they can take control. But the thing is, why are they around? They all play a role. It's not good or bad. It's about us being in a good state of health, because viruses have actually helped us to evolve as humans. As a matter of fact, when the human genome was decoded, they found that the human gene itself is 8% virus.
Right. It's like alien, right? It's like a...
Dude, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And we're at war with these things. We're at war with microbes. We want to kill viruses. We want to kill bacteria. Not to say that novel things or things that the body doesn't have an innate immunity towards, we shouldn't be careful about. But we also have an adaptive immune system, that this is how we got here. And what the greatest science that we have right now shows that our immune system itself was started by viruses that were defending itself against other viruses. And that's how we became the kind of dynamic adaptive immune system that we have today. And so this is the B cells, T cells, these interferons, natural killer cells, all these things. So, but going back to the microbiome and the association with calories, this is gonna freak you out. Listen to this. So, to start with, this was published in the journal Cell. They found that there's specific bacteria in mice that actually block their intestines from absorbing as many calories. All right. So the bacteria in their gut blocked the absorption of calories. Now, some folks are like, well, we're not mice. I get that. Now we have human studies, and now we know that folks that start to lean into being overweight and obese, there's a very distinct shift in the microbiome cascade. We can literally just look at somebody's microbiome cascade, not even know what they look like, what their body composition is, and know that they're overweight based on their bacteria. All right? And so what they did was they took these human, quote, fat bacteria and implanted them into lean mice. And what happened was the mice who had the fat bacteria put into their bodies began to gain weight. They became insulin resistant and gained body fat rapidly, versus taking human samples from healthy test subjects, lean test subjects, and putting them into mice. And they stayed lean, all right? Well, I'm getting excited. This is the one. This study right here is the freakiest one to me. They took identical twins, all right? Humans, yeah. They took identical twins and they looked at their microbiome cascade, and they found that again, these are identical twins, same caloric intake, all right? The twin who had a higher ratio of bacteria associated with obesity gained more weight, had a tendency towards gaining more weight and body fat, even though they're eating the same diet and they're identical freaking people, they're identical twins. The calories became such a lower tier thing. They're eating the same amount, yet one's gaining fat and one isn't. So this conversation is so much bigger than just managing calories and telling your patients that they need to be in a caloric deficit. We're way past that right now. These things matter, they absolutely matter, but there's so much more to the picture, and so many people are suffering because they keep doing calorie restricting and trying all these different diets and not understanding we need to get your microbiome healthy.
How do we get the microbiome healthy? So that's the solution.
Yeah.
It's focused on the microbiome, not the calorie deficit.
Yeah, this is a big part of the book too. We focus on these things. So
yeah.
We can get into that. So one of the most important things that the research is showing is that one of the most remarkable things in association with fat loss and weight loss is associated with having a higher diversity of microbes in your gut, specifically bacteria. The higher the diversity, the lower your body weight and body fat percentage, the correlation. The problem is, here in the Western world, our diversity of our microbes is just like, we've got a lot of endangered species and a lot of things are extinct, versus folks who are in more of a kind of an indigenous culture.
A plethora of fruits and vegetables and uniqueness, right?
Yeah. Somewhere around 4 times as many different microbes, right? So take yours, multiply it times 4. the different species of microbes. All right. So in the Western world, our diversity is going down, and this is also associated with some of the problems we're seeing that we think it's just associated to, it's people they don't have willpower, end of story.
Right.
But here in the United States, and I want people to really get this, we have an epidemic, and nobody's talking about this, and nobody's talking about this right now in association to the problems we're seeing. We have an epidemic of obesity. Over 200 million people here in this country right now are overweight or obese. All right. These
What's
numbers,
the definition of obesity?
Obesity.
How much
This is
body fat or percentage?
Unfortunately, this is tied to some questionable metrics with BMI. Because
Body
somebody
mass
can
index.
have a lot of muscle on their frame, but we're not talking about that. All right. We're talking about, we know what's happening here in the United States. And a recent study came out, it's meta-analysis, determined that about only 12% of United States citizens are metabolically healthy. All right. So we got over 200 million people who are overweight or obese.
How much body fat is overweight on a person? Or how much body fat percentage would that be? Is this
it depends.
20%, 30%? What's the...
I mean, even these numbers, man, can be a little bit, for example, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're healthier because your body fat percentage is low.
Right.
Like I had a 4.6% body fat at one point. I was not healthy.
Right.
Right. But just in general, guys can be somewhere in the ballpark of 12%, 15%. And that's still, but then it's just like the vanity aspect. Like I can't see my lines.
Yeah, exactly. Because right now I'm like 16%.
Yeah.
And I just checked.
But you're a healthy guy. Like this is what I'm saying. Like when I say that it depends on you, these numbers, we have a big problem with these numbers.
Yeah.
But I'm using the numbers as a leverage as far as with statistics to try to get our eyes open. But there's so much variance within that. Because again, some people would sell name their firstborn child Rumpelstiltskin, to have your body.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, we got to keep this stuff in context.
Sure.
Now,
okay.
200 million people in the United States
are obese.
Obese or overweight.
Yeah.
On top of that, over 130 million people in the United States have type 2 diabetes or prediabetes.
130?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. It's crazy. So diabetes or prediabetes. And on top of that, about 60% of the United States population has some degree of heart disease. Right now.
What does heart disease consist of? What are the types of heart disease in that category?
So this is such a diverse topic too, because even our definition of these things is a little skewed. Hardening of the arteries, for example. Like how does all this stuff work? But I want to point back to a really important point because I don't want this to go left unsaid. Some of my best friends are the top cardiovascular surgeon in the world or the top gastroenterologist in the United States. All right, these are my friends, colleagues, and they will tell you. So, top gastroenterologist, just talked with him recently. He was in school for 15 years. 15 years. And he shared with me he specializes in the treatment of systems associated with digesting your food. The systems and organs. But guess how much education he got on food?
1 month?
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Even a month versus 15 years of education, learning about food for 2 weeks. You treat organs that deal with food.
Right.
We have a big problem. So in the cardiovascular domain, same thing. Elective, right? And your heart is made of the food that you eat. Your arteries are made of the food that you eat. Your blood is made of the food that you eat. How do we not have an education on these things? Our attention is so, the system itself, these are incredibly smart people. These are some of the best and brightest. But if you take a really smart person and you miseducate them or you teach them the wrong thing, they become world-class at doing the wrong thing. And we keep trying to treat symptoms.
Right.
We're treating the symptoms of not knowing how food creates all these things. So it is that deep. This is how powerful food is. It becomes everything about you. The things you see in the mirror, how you feel, it's all based on food. It's so powerful. So
what if, I'm talking about how to optimize the microbiome.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing you say it's the diversity of the whole foods that we should be eating. And in America specifically, we have very limited diversity of these whole foods, these vegetables, these fruits, these healthy fats and meats and nuts, I'm assuming. Is that what it is?
Yes.
It's having a diversity. And the more diverse we can have, the better our microbiome makeup will become.
Yep. And in the book, I cite a brand new study that found that increasing your diversity in your fruits and vegetables inherently increases the diversity of your microbes. So this is a very simple thing we can do. Even if we're eating healthy, we tend to get caught in our little like food meal prep gone awry. You know what I mean? Like chicken, rice,
Yeah, same thing
broccoli,
every day.
chicken, rice, broccoli, you know? But I'm eating healthier compared to but what are you doing for your microbes? They need a diversity. And really the heart of the matter is, I've been talking about probiotics for 15 years.
Taking probiotics.
Yeah, not taking, but just the science of probiotics. And of course, that's one input. But you can take all the probiotics you want. They're not going to colonize if they don't have the food that they want. It's kind of like going to a party and you're hungry and they don't have snacks that you want. You're going to have to leave there soon, hit Del Taco.
You know, Taco
whatever.
Bell life, baby.
You know?
I've been to Taco Bell for 10 years.
Dude, I would get the 10 pack.
Oh, man. Back in St. Louis.
Yes.
Getting Taco Bell.
We've come a long way.
Steak and shake. Oh, man.
That's if you want to get fancy, you know? So here's the thing.
Man.
And it's so wonderful because, you know, when we get into these principles and how all of this stuff kind of fits together, this is a simple input, is increasing the diversity of the fruits and vegetables helps to create the preferred food choice or the prebiotics. So there's probiotics, prebiotics. Prebiotics are the food that the microbes want in order for them to stick around. So we're losing all of these species because they don't have their preferred food in our system anymore, all right? And then we have postbiotics. So we have pre, pro, and post. The postbiotics are basically the vitamins, minerals, scafas, these short chain fatty acids, all the nutrients your bacteria create in you for you. It's a symbiotic relationship. And that's really the front line right now. It's the, you know, like I said, the final frontier that we're studying.
If the background of life is there's an ineradicable component of suffering, and that's complicated by, let's say, malevolence and the proclivity of people to betray themselves and others, which complicates it and makes it worse, then if you don't have a noble aim and if that isn't imbuing your life with sustainable meaning, then you fall prey to all the catastrophe, the pain and the anxiety and the anger that suffering generates, and that makes you bitter.
Because what I'm hearing you say is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, we must have an aim in our life no matter what stage of life we're in. And if we don't have some type of aim, even if for a few months of an aim of going somewhere or direction, the suffering's gonna be even more suffering.
Pointless.
Because we're already gonna face the greatest challenges in life.
That's right. You're
we're
stuck with it.
already struggling.
That's right. There's no way out of that.
Adversity is coming no matter what.
That's right.
If we have big goals or small little goal or whatever it may be, but it's going to be less suffering if we have an aim.
Yeah, well, and not only that, it's worse than that even, because the suffering is
There's
pain.
zero meaning.
Well,
Yeah.
the suffering is pain, and the suffering is anxiety and uncertainty, and the suffering is hopelessness. But the consequence of all that is that you get bitter. And when you get bitter, you get mean and you get cruel and you start to hurt yourself and other people. So it's not only that if you don't have a goal, you suffer. It's that if you don't have a goal, you suffer, and then you get cruel and bitter and resentful, and then you start to actively try to make the world a worse place. And so because you can't suffer pointlessly without becoming bitter, and you can't become bitter without becoming cruel. So you need an aim. The question, of course, is what you should aim. Yeah,
better aim.
Yeah, a better aim, that's for sure. So then the question is, what should your aim be? Now, we have a program. It's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today. I have this website called selfauthoring.com, and that program helps people write about their life. And so there's a past authoring program. To establish your aim, you have to know where you are. It's like you're trying to orient yourself on a map. You can't orient yourself on a map unless you know where you are. You also have to know where you're going, right? So those are the two relevant things. The past authoring program helps people write about their lives. So it's a guided autobiography. We ask people to break their life up into 6 epochs, 6 sections, and then to write about the emotionally important events in those epochs, and to detail out why the positive things happened and why more of that could conceivably happen in the future, and to detail out why the negative things happened and to try to understand why, with an aim to not replicating them in the future. Because the purpose of memory isn't to remember the past. The purpose of memory is so that you figure out what went wrong when something went wrong, so you don't duplicate it in the future. So that's the purpose of memory. And the past authoring program can help people catch up. And you have to catch up if you have memories that are older than about 1.5 years that still cause you emotional pain when you think about them, or if you dwell on them, they come spontaneously back to mind. It means that there's part of your life that you haven't mapped out properly, and it still has emotional valence that's gripping you.
You're still holding on to that story.
Or it's still holding on to you.
Oh, interesting.
Right,
You haven't
right.
let it go.
Yeah, well, you haven't been able to navigate your way through it. There's a pitfall there that you fell in, and you don't know how to avoid similar pitfalls in the future, and that's why your brain won't let it go. Because it's saying, that's what the anxiety systems do. It's like, this happened to you, it wasn't good. This happened to you, it wasn't good. This happened to you, it wasn't good. Fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it. That will never go away unless you fix it.
How do you fix it?
Well, you have to figure out why it happened, right? That's the first thing, is like, how was it that situation arose to pull you down? And that's not simple. That's why we have the writing program, because it's complicated to think it through. But if you face it and you meditate on it, let's say, and you do this voluntarily, there's a pretty high probability that you'll be able to decrease the probability that will be repeated in the future. So.
Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
The second part of the program helps people do an analysis of their virtues and their faults. Same sort of idea. What's good about you that you could capitalize on? What's weak about you that you need to fix so that it doesn't bring you down, right? And that's the present authoring. But the future authoring program is probably most relevant to you and your listeners, because you're interested in helping people establish aims. And so we already talked about the fact that you need an aim in life, or that's where you derive your meaning, and without that, things go to hell, and as literally as that can be taken. And so, but it's not easy to ask people to say, well, it's easy to ask them, what do you want in your life? It's a very hard question to answer, because it's too vague and grand. Eh? So we help, in the future authoring program, we help people break that down. It's okay, so here's the situation. So you put yourself in the right frame of mind. So what's the right frame of mind? It's like rule 2 in this book. Treat yourself like you're someone responsible for helping. You're someone that you are responsible for helping. So what that means is you have to start from the presupposition that despite all your flaws and insufficiencies, that it's worth having you around, and that it would be okay if things were better for you. So you need to take care of yourself like you're taking care of someone you care for. So there's a bit of a detachment in that. And then the next thing is, okay, so now look 3 to 5 years down the road. Okay, you get to have what you need and want, assuming you're being reasonable and that you actually want it, which means you're willing to make the sacrifices that would make it possible.
What do you mean by reasonable?
Well, that's the next thing. Well, within your grasp, that would be something.
What if something is out of your grasp, but you still push hard enough?
Well,
to
then
potentially get it?
then you need an incremental plan, right? You need to
of
break
course.
that goal down into steps.
Not
that
some
you,
crazy goal within a year that's like,
Yeah.
you haven't even done the work to master a skill yet. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, well, that's it. And you can have a high-end goal, and more power to you if you do.
the
But you
time
need
frame,
it.
yeah.
Well, you need a pathway to it.
Absolutely.
You know, if it's 10 stories up above you, you need a staircase to get there, right? And so you have to build the staircase too.
Right.
And so, in the future authoring program, so you're asked first of all, okay, you get to have what you want and need. That's the proposition. But you have to aim at it. You have to define it and aim at it. So then the first thing is, okay, if you could put your family together the way you wanted it to be, what would that look like? And so that might be your siblings and your parents, but that also might be, your wife or your husband and your kids, assuming that you're at that point in your life. If you could have the family you wanted, what would that look like? Right? Okay. Career, same thing. You get to have the career or the job that is within your grasp, necessary and suitable for you if you were taking care of yourself. How are you going to educate yourself? Because you're not as smart as you should be. There's a lot more things you need to know. So you got to keep learning and moving forward. So you need to plan for that. How are you going to take care of yourself mentally and physically? Right? So how are you going to avoid the catastrophic temptations, for example, of drugs and alcohol, because that pulls a lot of people down. You need a plan for that. You're going to be a social drinker. How much are you going to drink? How much is too much? What about your drug use? You got to regulate that so it isn't a pitfall. How are you going to use your time meaningful and productively outside of work? Because you need a plan for that. So that's, and there's one other that's slipping my mind at the moment. Yeah, I think there's 7 initial questions, and I don't remember the last one. Intimate relationship, of course. So do you want a long-term, stable, intimate relationship? And if you do, then how would you like that to lay itself out? You got to have a vision for that, because if you don't have a vision, you're not going to aim at it. Absolutely. And if you don't aim at it, then you won't even see the opportunities when they arise. That's the thing that's so cool. I wrote about this in chapter 10, which is be precise in your speech. It's a chapter about the fact that aims structure your perceptions. So for example, once you aim at something, your brain, literally, the perceptual structures in your brain, in your visual cortex, reorient themselves to calculate a pathway to the aim. And then what they show you in the world is obstacles to that path and open pathways to the path. That's actually how the world reveals itself. Just like when you're driving in a car and you have a map and you aim at a particular place, then all the things that are related to that place show up in the world. It's exactly the same thing, because you are traveling through time and space. Right, and you need a map. And so after you answer these 7 questions, and you're encouraged to do it badly, because you don't have to get perfectionistic, just complete it, right? Because a bad plan is better than no plan. It gives you something to improve. So even if your aim is vague, and even if it's off target, if you start aiming and you see you're off target, then you can shift and you can make it more precise.
You start to recognize what you don't want in that.
Yes, exactly.
Say,
exactly.
Oh, I thought I wanted this, but I don't.
Exactly.
So let me re-navigate and figure out what I do want. And you might have to try a bunch of things.
Well, you will have to. You can be. That's why you shouldn't get perfectionistic about it. You will absolutely be wrong, but you won't be as wrong as you would have been if you were aimless. Right. So there's a bit of humility. No man's land is not
worse
good.
than going
No man's
somewhere.
room is worse than a bad path.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Ooh, I like that.
That's a good one. That's a good one, and it's right. It's right. You don't want to be in no man's land. Why did you use that phrase? Because that's right. That's exactly right.
I think for me, the idea of walking around aimlessly is like the worst idea in the world. It's like zero purpose, zero mission, zero certainty at all. It's like walking around in no man's land, aimlessly.
But it's funny too, because in no man's land, everybody's shooting at you. Right, because that's a military term. And no man's land is the space between two enemy positions. You bet. So if you're aimless, you're also at a place where everything is shooting at you.
Dang.
Yeah, so it's a very good metaphor that came to mind. Wow. Yeah, well, that's why we remarked on it. That's very, very cool. So then we say to people, okay, look, now you've thought about this for a while. It's nice to do this over a couple of days too, because then you get to sleep on it, and that helps reorient yourself. Yes. So then, now you write for 20 minutes. Don't worry about grammar or spelling. This isn't a composition exercise, right? You get to have what you want 3 to 5 years down the road. What does your life look like, hypothetically? Write it out. Write it out. Okay, so then that's the first part. The second part of the exercise, so now you've got your thing to aim at. You think, well, I'm motivated because I got my thing to aim at. It's like you're not as motivated as you could be, because you don't yet have your thing to run away from. Because if you really want to be motivated, you want to be going somewhere, and you want to be not going somewhere else.
Which typically is a pain, right?
Yes, or pain or anxiety. Some domain of suffering and guilt,
I don't want to feel this anymore.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So the other thing we ask people is, okay, now take stock of your weaknesses and imagine that you let them multiply. You got hopeless and you augured in, and things were as bad for you as they could be in 3 to 5 years.
What are some examples of weaknesses that people might have?
They lie. They procrastinate, they avoid, they're grandiose, they're narcissistic, they're undisciplined, they're nihilistic, they're aimless, all of those things.
Got it, yeah.
Right?
Victim
mentality, they take the quick way out, they pursue impulsive pleasures, they sacrifice meaning for expediency, they don't take care of their basic responsibilities, they fight stupidly with their parents, they don't negotiate properly with their spouse. They're bitter at work because they haven't said what they have to say. They haven't thought through what they're doing tomorrow. They drink too much. They smoke too much. They take too many drugs. They don't regulate their
work out.
So there's like, and everyone knows, man. Everyone knows, and everyone's got a set of weaknesses that they know about. And so we say, all right.
What are some of your weaknesses, like 3 weaknesses that you know right now you could still work on, and then 3 things that you think are really
Well, a lot of
challenging?
things are things that I've taken care of in my life. Like I used to smoke when I was a kid. I smoked a pack a day. I used to drink a lot. I didn't work out. Like I wasn't nearly as disciplined as I should have been.
Yeah.
I wasn't as careful with what I was saying. Like I
words
suppose
were loose.
my
Yeah.
most likely negative outcome probably would have been I really like to drink. Like alcohol is a really good drug for me.
Is
I
that why you
enjoyed
did
it a
your
lot.
thesis on that?
Well, partly. It was mostly because the opportunity came up for me to investigate drug and alcohol use. But I came from a little town in northern Alberta. It was a heavy drinking town, and that could have been a real trap for me.
Right.
You know, and so anyway, so we have these people. You say, okay, now you know your weaknesses, and you know what particular hell you would descend to if you allowed yourself to descend into it, because you've probably had a taste of it. It's like you really let that go, and you're in a terrible place in 3 to 5 years because you haven't done what you should do. What does that look like? It's like everybody writes
Write it
that
down,
down.
yeah.
Write it down so you know, because one of the things you want to have behind you, let's say you have to do something difficult, like go confront your boss. It's like, well, maybe hope isn't enough to encourage you to do that. You think, well, no, if I don't go confront my boss carefully and intelligently,
Right.
then I'm going to hate my job, and then I'm going to drink more, then I'm going to end up in that little hell place that I designed for myself. It's like, oh, I'm not going there. Well, I don't want to talk to my boss, or I don't want to confront my wife or my husband, whatever it is, or my father or my children for that matter. But if I don't,
Then I'll resent myself, or I'll resent the
and
situation.
I'm going to end up going down this
Yeah.
terrible pathway. It's like,
Yeah.
because sometimes when you're moving forward, you have to do something difficult. And you might think, well, why bother? And the answer is, well, so I don't end up in hell.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
about that? Oh yeah, there's that.
Because it's
so
deep. If you don't experience the pain now, or the difficulty now, you're going to have a deeper pain later.
yeah, that's life.
Much
man.
deeper pain
Yeah,
later.
yeah.
And that's why I think that you mentioned at one point is like putting ourselves in structured pain, like structured sense of feeling pain throughout the day, whether it be the tough conversation. I don't want to do that. It's painful, but I'm going to, because I know afterwards it's going to probably feel better.
It's a bit of a sacrifice, right? So you sacrifice stability in the present for a gain in the future. That's the big discovery of human beings.
And were you
sacrifice works.
Exactly. And were you a big athlete growing up?
No.
No? But
No, well, I was a small kid, and I skipped a grade.
Yeah.
Although I skied and I went cross-country skiing, and
That's
that.
good.
But it's individual sports
Yeah.
things, mostly with my dad.
You'll understand then, in order to improve as an athlete or in any sport, you have to put yourself through daily pain.
Yeah, right.
If you want to achieve that model of excellence that you watch someone playing basketball as a child, and you see someone living this model, it's going to be 15 years of deliberate pain.
Yeah, that's a discipline.
That's
man.
it.
Yeah, well, I worked out for a long time with weights, And,
So you know, you
yeah,
felt
yeah,
it every
yeah,
day.
yeah,
You didn't want to push through the pain, but
Yeah.
you knew that it would get you a greater result.
Yeah, well, and it's easier not to do it than to do it, but not in the
Easier.
long run.
Yeah, exactly.
I really seen the benefits, for example, for weightlifting, because I've watched people, because I'm 50, how old am I? 56.
You look great.
So I'm getting older, and I've really noticed the difference between people and when they age, between people who laid down a good physiological platform when they were young and those who didn't, because if you haven't worked out weights particularly, I
Yeah.
would say, you start to get pretty soft in your 30s and your cardiovascular system starts to go, and really early. The other thing too is the best thing you can do to maintain cognitive ability isn't to do exercises like lumosity. It's not brain exercises that keep you sharp, it's exercise. So if you're
Physical.
50, both cardiovascular and weightlifting, if you're 50, you can restore your cognitive function to the level of a 30-year-old through exercise.
Your mental function through physical activity.
Yeah, well, your brain is a very demanding organ, and if your cardiovascular system is compromised, then you get stupid. And so, yeah, it's really...
So the less you move and the bigger you get, the more stupid you become.
Yeah, well,
smaller
because
your brain gets,
you compromise its function, because the brain is it's the organ that uses more. It's very metabolically demanding, and so if you're not in good physical shape, then one of the things that suffers most greatly is your cognitive function, and so that's quite an interesting thing to see how tight that linkage is. So in the next part of the program, we have people. Now it's okay. Now you got your vision.
Yeah. Even if it's a bad one, it's still okay.
That's right. Well, it's better than no vision at all, right? It's
Better than no
something that
man's
you can
land.
improve.
Yeah.
Well, think. You're trying to get through a territory you don't understand. And here's your option. No map. A map that's not so good but has some things about it, or a great map. Well, obviously the great map is the thing you want,
yeah.
but the map that's something is way better than the map that's nothing. Plus, as you explore, because of your map, you can start to fill in the details.
And you start to learn, you start to overcome stuff, and you start to master skills on your journey, right?
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too. Is like, let's say you aim at something and you develop some skills along the way, and then you get like a third of the way there, and you think, oh, that's not for me. It's like, well, yeah, fair enough, but now you've still got the skills you developed. You know exactly why it's not for you now, instead of vaguely.
So you don't have to keep going after that way.
Exactly.
And
Well, and you have a rationale, and then you can bring that wisdom back. Even though it's not perfect, you can bring it back to your next plan. And so,
And take responsibility
Yes.
for the next steps. Yeah.
yes. And so as you plan, you get better at planning, which is the crucial thing. So then we say to people, take your positive vision and make it into 8 stateable goals, right? So, and then rank them in a hierarchy, because you need to know what.
Like a top goal and then
and
incremental goals.
Yeah, and that, well, that's the other thing, is break the goals into incremental goals so that you have a reasonable probability of succeeding. So, because what you want to do, this is also what you want to do with a kid. You don't tell your kid, here's an impossible thing, why don't you go out and fail? You say, here's something worth going after, here's a step you could take that would push you beyond where you are, but that you also have a reasonably high probability of succeeding at, right? They call that
Within a time frame.
within some time frame. That's the other thing. You have to parameterize it with regards to time frame. That's right. And that puts you in the zone of proximal development. And that's a concept that was generated by a guy named Vygotsky. He was a Russian developmental psychologist, and a smart one. It's where the idea of the zone comes from, to be in the zone.
Yes.
And when you're in the zone, you're expanding your skills in a manner that's intrinsically rewarding, because you're succeeding. And so you want to set, if you're good to yourself, you think, okay, I need to set a goal, but I need to set a goal that someone as stupid and useless as me could probably attain if they put some effort into it.
Right.
And then you've got it perfectly, because it's not so high that it's grandiose or impossible that you fail necessarily and then justify your bitterness. It's like, well, I could do well, because that happens to people.
Happens
man.
all the time.
Yeah, it's like,
See this all the time.
you know, it's like, yes, exactly. Well, I set a goal and I didn't attain it, so I'm not going to set any more goals.
Right.
It's like, no, you set a goal that was inappropriate.
For the time frame. Yeah.
That's right. You didn't calibrate it properly. And you're playing a trick on yourself, because you wanted to fail so that you could justify not having to try. So,
And being a victim. Yeah.
which isn't helpful. You're still going to be a victim. It's like, there's no way out of that, man. So, because life is a challenge that in some sense can't be surmounted. So there's no way out of your problem. But there are certainly proper ways of dealing with it.
Yeah.
And so you lay out
those eight steps.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Lay them out, and then the next thing is, okay, you need a rationale for them, because you're going to have doubts, and people are going to put up obstacles.
Is that a meaning you mean? Is that a meaning? A rationale means a meaning?
Yeah, justification.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so here, what sort of justification is a good justification for your goals? It's easy. Why would it be good for you? Okay. Why would it be good for your family if you attain that goal? Why would it be good for the broader community? Because if it's a good goal, it should be good for you. That's fine. But if it's a really good goal, it should be good for you in a way that's good for other people.
Win-win-win.
Yes, exactly. And if you're going to decide what your goals are, why not set up the ones that benefit the largest number of people
maximum.
simultaneously?
Yeah.
Yes. And if you can do that, you should start with your own concerns, because you have to take care of yourself.
Basic needs first.
Yes. Put your own
Family.
oxygen mask on, then put your child's oxygen mask
Community.
on. Yeah. Right. And then you can, as you build up the basis of competence locally, you might develop enough skills so that you can expand that outward. And it also gives your goal a certain amount of nobility. And so if someone challenges you and says, well, why are you doing that? That seems stupid. You could say, I'm doing that because it helps me take care of myself, but it benefits my family, and here's the reasons why, and this is the repercussions out into the broader community. And like, people who are putting up objections and doubts aren't armed to deal with that kind of response.
Yeah.
And then when you have those doubts in your mind that plague you, which they and
You go back to your reason.
you go back to your reasons. You
Your
say,
why.
that's right. Say, why am I doing this? Oh yeah, it's because, well, I have to take care of myself, because otherwise I'm pathetic and useless and bitter and cruel, and then I'm going somewhere terrible, so that's a bad idea. And here's how it would help my family, and here's how it would help the community, and that's good enough set of reasons for, unless I can think of better ones.
Right.
Right. If without better ones, that's good enough.
Because I think the question comes back to, after, someone could go down the rabbit hole and say, why am I doing this? And why is this, meaningful for me? And I think a lot of people go back to, well, why am I here in the first place?
Yes. Yes.
Why am I here? What is the meaning of my life? And is this real? Or is this just some dream world?
Well, and people do go back to that.
And then they get stuck on that.
Yeah.
But none of this even matters because why am I even here?
Well, the thing is that that's a self-defeating set of propositions in some sense, because the consequence of being stuck there, the reason you're stuck there to begin with is because you're not very happy about the fact that life is intrinsically tied up with suffering, because you wouldn't be asking that question to begin with. Okay, so if you let that pull you in and take you down, all it does is make the suffering worse.
Absolutely.
It's not helpful. And then the cascade that we talked about happens. You suffer stupidly and pointlessly. You get bitter, you get cruel, you make everything worse. It's like, that's your answer, is it? You're gonna make everything worse. It's bad enough, you're gonna make it worse. Mostly people won't do that consciously.
Yes.
So you think, well, what's the alternative? Well, here's one. If you have a sufficiently noble purpose, the suffering will justify itself. And I think that's empirically testable. And I do believe it's the case because I've watched people do very difficult things, like people who work in palliative care wards. So all they're ever dealing with is pain and death, right? And they can do it. They get up in the morning, they go to work, and they take care of those people. They lose people on a weekly basis, and yet they can do it. And what that shows is that if you turn around and you confront the suffering voluntarily, you find out that you are way tougher than you think. It's not that life is better than you think. Life is as harsh as you think. It might even be worse, but you are way tougher than you think if you turn around and confront it. And so then what you discover is that there's a spirit within you that can pursue something meaningful, that has the resilience and the strength to contend properly with the catastrophe of existence without becoming bitter. That's actually the central. So, and I would say that's one of the central themes of 12 Rules for Life, is that make no mistake about it. Like the first noble truth of Buddhism, life is suffering. This is true. And it's worse than that because it's suffering contaminated by malevolence. That's the baseline. And so that's very pessimistic. But the optimistic part is that you are so damn tough, you can actually not only deal with that, you can improve it. It's like, oh, well, that's a horrible situation. But it turns out that I'm armed for the task. Well, that's a great thing for people to know. And I think the fact that we're armed for the task is even more true than the fact that life is catastrophe contaminated by malevolence. We're stronger than things are terrible. And things are pretty terrible. So that means we're pretty damn strong.
Wow.
Yes, it's a very good thing to know. And it's not naive optimism. Yeah. It's a very different thing. It's like, no, things are terrible. They're brutal. And you are so damn tough, you can't believe it.
How do we deal with success? Because this is actually, when I ask most people, 50-50 of people are failure and success is their biggest fear. And some people say, why would you be afraid of success? But a lot of people are afraid to succeed because of the weight, the pressure. Can I maintain it? My family and friends aren't going to support me and they're going to try to pull me back down, all this stuff. How do we deal with success? Because we're not taught this growing up. So how do you think we should deal with it?
One of my favorite ways to deal with success is continue trying to be the least successful person in the room that you're in. I think there's those statements of like, never
always be the dumbest person.
Yeah, never be the smartest person in the room, etc. And I think it's the same with, if you become successful, don't just stand at the top of the mountain, don't just stand at the top of the building, go back down the stairs and keep building and keep living as that person that got you there, because you only got there because you started from the bottom. Right, no one starts at the top, and so you started at the bottom and you built it up, and it was that mindset that you started with that got you there. And so you want to keep rediscovering that mindset and new parts of it, and new parts of that mindset too, where you're always trying to challenge yourself. And so for me, one of the best ways of dealing with success is keep expanding the goalposts, right? Keep widening the goalposts, keep making them harder to reach and challenging yourself, because when you challenge yourself and you push yourself out of your comfort zone, you're naturally humbled. Because you're naturally humbled when you're walking into spaces. I'm sure you feel this sometimes. Like, sometimes I walk into a room and I'm like, how did I even get here?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
sitting at a table, I'm like, why should I be here?
Yeah, like, and there's part of it that's imposter syndrome, and that can have its own negativity, but part of that just lets me feel like a beginner again.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that feeling, and I go, this is amazing, because learning to be grateful and stop just thinking that, I earned all of this and I did it all myself and I'm self-made, you start recognizing gratitude for all the people that got you there. So for me in success, first thing is be grateful for all your teachers, mentors, guides, people that got you there. The second thing is always keep challenging yourself, because the more you're out of your comfort zone, the more naturally you stay humble. You don't stay humble by trying to be humble. You become humbled constantly by trying to do stuff that's out of your league, which constantly makes you prepare, work, deepen what you have.
Study, all that stuff.
All of that stuff that makes you go there again. And then the third thing you do with success is I think you try and share it with others. You try and use your platforms as an opportunity to give other people a platform so that they can come up as well, because you're reminded of what a beautiful gift you have.
Yeah, and how the people supported you or gave you an opportunity or gave you an interview or something early on.
There was someone successful who had to give you something in the
piece
beginning.
of a wisdom.
Coming on your podcast, giving you an insight.
A quote or whatever,
or even rejecting you. Even indirectly, someone had to do something.
That's true. You know, it's funny because I love this approach to having humility when you succeed. And I also think, let me know if you think I'm off here, I also feel like sometimes we get into a place where we're always putting it on other people. Like, it's not about me, it's about the team, it's about this. Like, I see that a lot as well, where some people are more extreme, like I'm the man, and then other people are like, you know what, it wasn't me at all, it was God, it was the team, like I just showed up, So I think there's a balance of, I love the speech that Snoop Dogg gave, where I think it was like on the Hollywood Walk of Fame,
when he got his star.
And he says like, I want to thank me for me. I want to thank me for all those late nights I put in, for all the hard work, for like overcoming the rejection. Like he went on this thing, and I want to thank me for like showing up.
Yeah.
And I think we also should acknowledge ourselves for, yes, people helped us.
For sure.
We got guidance. We had all this access, but Snoop Dogg still had to show up.
Yeah.
He still had to put in the hours and the time to make the results. And I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, is it good to also acknowledge ourselves for the work we put in, the wins, the things we do?
Yeah,
or is it all about being humble and acknowledging everything else?
I think it's about being honest.
Yeah.
It's honesty, right? Like humility means to be honest. It's like the ability to say, this is what this person deserves credit for, and this is what I deserve credit for, and this is what this person. It's kind of like when you write the acknowledgements of your book, right? You write. I mean, I remember doing that process and really thinking about like who's helped this book in different ways, and everyone gets their line in the acknowledgement who's made a difference. Now your name goes on the front cover because you wrote the book. Like you want everyone to receive the credit to the degree they merit it.
Yes.
And so you never want someone to feel like they didn't receive as much credit as they deserve. And at the same time, you don't want to give someone more credit than they deserve. The point of credit is to give it where credit's due.
Right.
And so for me, that's honesty, that's humility. Arrogance and pride is when you start to feel like only you did it on your own. And we all know that's just not true. Like, I can't say I did it all on my own. I can't anyway. I definitely can't say that. And I can't say it was all other people. And so that's where honesty and humility, I think, live together.
Yeah, acknowledging everything about it.
Yeah.
I'm curious about, a lot of people haven't learned about how to deal with failure or success. And I don't think people have been trained how to believe in themselves. And for me, self-doubt is a big thing. I think it keeps people back from their dreams. And I'm curious, I'm going to share 5 words with you: beliefs, thoughts, words, actions, and intentions. How should we be thinking about beliefs, thoughts, words, actions, and intentions within our life? Because I think those 5 things dictate the results, the outcome, our feelings, all of this in our life based on beliefs, thoughts, words, actions, intentions. How should we be thinking about these things? How should we be speaking to help us build our self-confidence? What's your thoughts? I'm throwing a lot at you here, but...
No, let's go down each of them. So let's start with beliefs. So I think the first thing we have to do with beliefs is you have to realize everyone has them. It's not like you don't have beliefs just because you don't know what they are. Everyone has beliefs that they're currently living with. And I think life is about unlearning the beliefs you have and questioning the beliefs you have and then creating new ones. So the first thing I do with beliefs...
Unlearning.
Yeah.
From the beginning.
From the beginning.
What if your parents had the answers and the way and the religion and this? Should we be questioning it all?
I think we should question it because questioning... questions are the most powerful invention in the world. Because questions either strengthen or weaken a belief based on the information. So questions aren't always from a place of doubt and cynicism and trying to find a weakness. Questions are a sincere request to figure out something. Like when we're sitting in these interviews, you're not sitting there trying to like be cynical or you want to help yourself and people who are listening and watching. And so that's a question, first of all. A question is not to catch someone off guard. A question is not to put someone down. A question is not to mislead people. A question is to uplift yourself and others. And when you ask a question in that way, the answer can either strengthen a belief you already have or weaken it, or introduce you to a new one.
Why do we get so frustrated when our beliefs get questioned? When we have a belief that we put out in the world, or we question someone's belief, why do people, when they get shaken in their beliefs, they attack, they break down, whatever? Why is that? Why don't people just say, okay, that's interesting, let me look at that more?
Yeah, because we've defined our identity by our beliefs. So imagine you're on one of these assault courses and you're on this rope and you're being told to swing to the next rope. But in order to catch the next rope, you need to let go of this rope. But you're scared because this rope is currently your safety. So your current belief is your safety. And when you have to consider holding on to another belief and to entertain both together, you're scared that if that one doesn't hold, I'm basically going to fall. So people are scared that their belief is currently their safety net. And so even if it's wrong, it still makes them feel safe and they feel comfortable, and we don't want to feel uncomfortable, so we'd rather hold on to that safety net, right? So the only way to do it...
So how do we get comfortable with questioning our beliefs, but not being like holding on to nothing?
Well, realizing that you don't have to change your mind, or you don't have to leave what you think in order to entertain or be curious about anything and explore. Like exploring, experimenting, and experiencing can either strengthen the belief you have or help you find a new one. But you have to do that middle 3 E's of exploring, experimenting, and experiencing.
Yeah.
And the problem is that we are just theoretically thinking. We're not experiencing the benefit.
And this is what I love about what you've done in your past. We've talked about this, how you grew up in a certain religion, and then you started studying different religions to see, okay, let me just try this on, and let me see what I like about this religion, and does that apply? Can I let something go in what I grew up in? Not making anything right or wrong, but just saying what works for you.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think taking that experiential journey of asking questions from different beliefs allows you to just say, okay, yeah, this is working for me already. I don't need to change.
Exactly.
And I like this, and I'm going to keep growing and go from there, right?
Yeah, definitely. I desired for safety and security. So what you're speaking about was when I was around 16, maybe 15, we used to celebrate Christmas every year. And Christmas is probably my favorite time of year. We were talking about it. Like, I love listening to Christmas songs, and I love Christmas decoration. And for me, Christmas is
presents.
It's presents. And so I grew up in a culture where we celebrated Christmas, but Christmas was presents and a family dinner. And because I went to my school in England, we'd celebrate all the religious holidays. So we knew about all the main stories behind every major world religion. And so I remember celebrating Christmas at home, but thinking, I don't know that much about Jesus. And should I not be connecting with Jesus, because that's why we even have this day? And so I started going to church in my local area just out of curiosity. I wasn't trying to be a Christian or trying to be a Hindu or trying to be anything. I was just interested and curious to be like, what is it about Christ that created a day that has lasted thousands of years that people all over the world celebrate? There must be something here. And so I feel like we get so scared because we want clear designations. We want like a clear title of I am this or I am that. And that gives us a sense of safety and security. But really answers come in the curiosity, not in the security.
Yeah.
Right?
What does that identity do to us, in a good way or in a negative way?
In a good way, it creates and this isn't just about religious identity, it's any identity.
Just
I'm
any
a podcaster
identity.
or whatever. Yeah, it's not about
holding
religion.
on to this identity of yourself.
Yeah. So in the good sense, it surrounds you with more people like that. So if I'm a podcaster, I hang out with more podcasters, we learn more about podcasting, and that's a great thing because we all become better podcasters. The mistake is I go, I can only be a podcaster, but I can't write a book. I can't make a video. I can't do that now. And that's the mistake that it makes. So it should be evolving. These titles that we give ourselves, these communities should help us evolve, not devolve.
Yeah.
And not stop us from expanding and growing.
Okay.
And so you want to be around people that are always curious and insightful.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Perfect sense. Okay, thoughts.
Yes.
Thoughts are something, what do we have? 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. 80% are negative.
Yeah.
And most of them are repeating thoughts.
Yes.
So let's talk about thoughts.
Yeah. My favorite technique that I talk about in the book is called spot, stop, swap.
Yep.
And so that theme is all around how thoughts are meant to be spotted, stop and reflect, and then swap. And what I mean by that is, if you've got a thought that's repeating, like you said, and is negative, I'm guessing you don't want that thought around for too long.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to spot, when does that thought arrive? Does it arise when I'm with certain people? Does it arise when I'm on a particular social media platform? Does it arise when I go to a particular place? Where is that? What is the seed of that thought, right? So once I identify that, I now need to stop, spend some time in stillness and go, is this thought benefiting me? Is this thought useful to me? Is this thought actually leading me to who I want to become? And if it's not, I need to swap it with a thought. So one of my favorite ways of, let's take an example of like, I feel less than. I feel like I'm not achieving anything.
I'm no good.
I'm no good. I'm not good enough. So you spot that and you go, oh, I always feel that when I'm going through this particular Instagram profile because I'm looking at someone who I think is better than me. Okay, what do I swap that with? You don't swap that with you're beautiful, you're amazing, you're incredible, because you may not believe that yet.
Yeah.
But you stop it. You swap it with, I feel confident when. I feel attractive when. I feel happy and joyful when. And you figure out what is that thing that I need to be and do to feel that emotion.
Yeah,
Because
so don't lie to yourself.
don't lie to yourself,
Yeah.
because lying to yourself is not going to get too far.
And you're losing your integrity as well to yourself.
Totally.
Which makes you less confident.
Yeah, like I
overall.
feel healthy when I exercise.
Yeah.
I feel happy when I spend time with my wife.
Yeah, and there's a line that everyone uses, fake it till you make it,
Yeah.
but it's really, you should be facing it till you make it. Like face that fear, face that doubt, and say, okay, what can I do to improve this until I make myself feel better about it?
If you want to get a result for the long term, yes.
Yes.
Like if you just want to make yourself feel better instantly, then do what you need to do.
Yeah.
But if you really want to create a life that's
I love
fulfilling,
that.
that's
Yeah.
thoughts.
Thoughts can transform your life in a positive way or a negative way.
Completely.
And I feel like that's the foundation of our life, is what we think.
The best place to talk about that, though, with thoughts is the movie Inception. So you look at how a thought is planted into someone's mind, and how in that movie, Leonardo DiCaprio in his wife's mind plants a thought that this is not real. And that thought grows into a
A belief that is so strong, it's crazy.
right? And it's like, that is literally what a thought can do. And you see that in the Joker movie. So I did a whole episode last year, which was all about like mental health and the Joker. And you look at the Joker's stories, he's trying to bring joy to others, but everyone treats him badly. And so the thought sets in of, I'm not worthy, I'm not valuable, my father doesn't want me, no one thinks I'm funny, everyone makes fun of me, even when I go on TV, everyone's laughing at me. That idea becomes his reality. Now I get that that's a fiction movie, but the point is still that we see, even in today's world, that thoughts have the ability to become, I forget the word that Leonardo DiCaprio uses in the movie, but that thought...
Yeah, cancer or some type of...
Yeah, it's like a cancer in the mind, right? It like really just expands. And so I think we have to be so good at spotting, stopping, and swapping thoughts
I love
in the
that.
middle.
Okay. So beliefs, we want to ask about everything and question everything.
Yeah.
Spot, stop, swap, thoughts. What about words? How important is the things that come out of our mouth into existence?
Harvard did a table, which I really believe is what mindful speaking is all about. So
What is this?
So it's called Harvard List of Emotions, but I kind of changed the name to emotional vocabulary because I think it sounds better.
Okay.
So an emotional vocabulary, if you look at all of the world's emotional vocabulary, it's very limited. We use 5 words to describe pretty much everything. Good, bad,
Yeah.
okay, fine, So it's like, how's your week going? Good. How's your day been? Bad. How are you feeling?
Okay, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Literally, like we use such limited words, and that may be okay for the majority of people, but in your personal relationships, it's so important to expand your emotional vocabulary. So this table that Harvard has made, which anyone can find just by typing in Harvard List of Emotions on Google, what that does is that it shows you that when you say you're sad, what do you actually mean? So it gives you all this list of emotions that sit under the word sad. Are you irritated? Are you offended? Are you disappointed? Have you been let down? The more you expand your emotional vocabulary, the more you can diagnose how you feel.
Interesting.
And the more you can tell your partner or your friend,
This is how I'm feeling.
this is how I'm actually feeling. And this is one of the biggest mistakes with words, is that we think our words mean the same thing. Now, when you say love, you might think forever. And when I say love, I might think for tonight, right? And that is literally how the word love or care or marriage or forever gets misused, abused, and thrown about, because we both mean different things. And our meanings are based on our backgrounds,
Our beliefs.
but how we were born and how our parents
our culture,
treated us.
our experience.
Everything. Yeah, it forms our meaning. So I really believe that in a relationship, in our communication with words, define words. When you say, yeah, we're best friends or friends, what does that mean to you? When we're business partners, what does that mean to you? A contract, in a financial legal sense, is to define the terms.
Right.
But in our emotional sense, we also need to define the terms. And we don't do that emotionally enough. And that's why we feel emotionally like someone broke the contract. And you have nothing to hold them to, because you never made a contract.
You never communicated.
You never communicated
the
it.
meaning of these words.
Exactly. And that's why words are so powerful, but they're only powerful when we agree on the definition.
Yeah. What are the words we should eliminate from our vocabulary, and what are the words we should be adding or using more of?
Words that we should use more of in our life are words that give us the right feeling we want to feel. So I'll give you an example. Instead of saying, now I work super hard, I do get tired, and I do get exhausted sometimes. I'm very aware of it and I'm cautious of it. And I realized that for a long time, I just kept repeating, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. And I'd say it to my wife, I'd say it to my team.
I'm overwhelmed, stressed.
Yeah, and I still do it sometimes. So it's not that I'm perfect, but you're making me aware of it. And I say that, and I started to realize that, okay, it didn't make me feel better by saying it. And actually what I was trying to do was get validation from someone else to be like, I know how hard you work and you're amazing and blah, 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 blah. And so, you're really doing it for a reaction.
Yes.
And then I started to realize, well, I am tired, but why don't I just say, I'm going to make some time to nap today. I need to find some time today to rest. I need to make sure that I, get some time to myself today. Like when you flip it, not by just saying, oh, I feel amazing, because I don't feel amazing. Again, you don't want to lie to yourself, but you're trying to create words that help you actually get what you need. So me saying I'm tired, really what I need to be saying is, I need to get some more rest today. I better sleep early. And when you go, to Radhi, you know what? I think I'm going to sleep early tonight. That's perfect, because now I'll sleep early and I'll get the rest and I won't be tired. If I go, hey Radhi, I'm so tired, it just creates this negative pattern of complaining and whining and creating that in ourselves.
What's the difference between a positive mantra and fake positive thinking? Because there's, the power of positive thinking, but if it's not accurate to where you're currently at, it could be out of integrity with yourself and you could feel off.
Yeah.
So how do we have a positive mantra or a saying or thoughts or words that support our growth as opposed to, I'm fine when you're not fine?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm trying to avoid.
Yeah.
Because when I'm tired, if I was told to just say to yourself, I'm healthy, I'm excited, I'm energetic, I may survive for 30 minutes more, but that's not going to survive for 30 days or 3 years. And so for me, I find connecting positive mantras to an act or an action. For example, if I'm tired and me saying, I think I need to eat on time, that action is what's going to solve the fatigue long term. Or me saying, I need to sleep early tonight, that action is going to solve the fatigue long term. So to me, the positive mantra needs to be linked to an action and a habit that's actually going to relieve you in the long term of that pain point, right?
Yeah.
Or like, I need to get my schedule to be more organized on Monday mornings. And my favorite example with that, again, I don't know if, this with the words is the definition that I think we see this most prominently in is the definition of time. So many friends will come to me and say, my partner doesn't spend enough time.
Or I don't have enough time.
And what they're really saying is, from a partner point of view, is I really want energy, intimacy, and presence and attention.
It's attention.
You're not asking for time, you're asking for attention. And I've had friends who have gone on weekends away with their partners and they'll come back and their partner on Monday morning will say, I wish we had more time together. And the partner's thinking, well, but we just spent the whole weekend together. But they're like, no, because you were doing your work and by the beach and you were reading your book and I was trying to take care of the kids. And you realize it was never time. It was attention. It was intimacy. It was presence. And so if we don't define those words, all right, words are all about definitions. If you don't define them, people will break that contract and that emotional contract, and you have nothing to hold them to.
Well, you didn't have you guys weren't aligned to your contract.
No, not at all.
You just
There
had
was
your
no-
belief that like, oh, she understands me, he understands me. Like, this is the way it is in my life, and it must be the same way in their life.
Exactly.
What are the actions we should be adding more of in our life and the ones we should be eliminating?
I think actions that we should be adding more of in our life are actions that create positive habits. I think it has to be habits orientated. It has to be stuff that we can repeat. And in Think Like a Monk, I talk about the 4 key habits in your day, which are thankfulness, inspiration, meditation, and exercise, which is the acronym of TIME. So make more time in your day for thankfulness, inspiration, meditation, and exercise. Those are 4 actions that I think if everyone wants to take in their day, this is what happens. When you're thankful, you boost your immunity, you boost your self-confidence, you boost your mood.
Yeah.
Because you go, oh, people love me, that means I matter. People care about me, that means I have something to care about. So it boosts your mood. And then when you tell people that you're thankful, you now boost connection and relationship. And when you thank someone, you now boost the feeling of, I have people in my life that care about me and I care about them. So much comes out of that one action. Inspiration or insight, listening to a podcast, reading a book, reading a quote. When you do that, again, you feel excited, you feel enthused, you feel like you're learning, you feel like your mind actually works and that they can go somewhere. So that's a great action. Meditation, of course, we've talked about at length in the beginning. And exercise, people just don't understand that we could solve so many of our challenges simply by sleep and exercise and diet. Like those 3 things
Change your life.
could change your life. And we have to just get focused on one at a time. And so we're in actions. I talk about this thing in principle is we want things to be small steps, but big priorities. So if you want to change an action in your life, it needs to be a big priority, and then you need to break it down into small steps. What we try and do is we try and change everything at the same time.
Yeah, we're like, okay, I'm gonna only eat lettuce. I'm gonna work out 3 hours a day. I'm gonna sleep 10 hours. I'm gonna be, it's like you need to shift your identity around like the thing and take the small steps towards it, but don't try to do everything right away.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be healthy and in shape, then you just need to change your identity to say, I am Mr. Fitness.
Yeah.
Like I am fitness.
Yes.
And I'm going to start living my habits and my actions towards being in fitness, in good health.
Yeah.
But you can't change every habit right away.
No.
Because then you'll get burnt out after 2 weeks. You'll be like, this is exhausting.
Yeah.
I'm not Mr. Fitness.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
you need to change your mindset and then take those small actions.
Exactly. And there's a beautiful quote from, this is more like an underpinning. Actually, this kind of leads to the next one. We'll save it for the next one.
Yep. Intentions.
Yeah. So there's a beautiful quote from the Dalai Lama where he said that we're born to help people. And if we can't help them, let's at least not hurt them. And I think that's the intention, that you want to leave every person happier than you found them, leave every place cleaner than you found it, leave every project more productive than you found it. Like you want to feel that if you couldn't uplift something or someone, at least don't pull it down. And I think that when you live like that in your intention, people feel that. This isn't necessarily something that you even have to say or do. People feel that when you just leave a place and all you wanted to do was give your energy in a positive way. So to me, intention is just coming from a place of how do I leave every person just a little bit happier than I found them. I don't have to change their life.
Right.
But how
Try
do
not to hurt them.
Try not to hurt them.
With everything that's been happening in the world right now, I'm hearing a lot of people say that intention isn't enough. Like having a positive, I had a good intention to like say the right thing, but it offended someone and it impacted them in a negative way.
Yeah.
So how do people understand that it's about intention, but it's also you might hurt people, you might offend people, even if you weren't intending to? How do we shift that in our mind and our actions to sync up our intentions to actually impacting people in a positive way?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
It makes so much sense. A real deep intention means that you will care and do the research and study. And often we have a good intention, but it's not the deepest, greatest intention, so we try and wing it.
It's based on our beliefs.
Correct.
As opposed to doing the research of other things.
Correct. And so really good intentions make you ask questions and make you care and make you compassionate. And sometimes that doesn't mean saying a lot. Sometimes that means listening, learning, receiving, understanding. And I think when we are trying to show our good intentions, we say a lot and it may be taken the wrong way.
Yeah.
But when we really want to be our good intentions, we're just listening and learning and asking good questions. And you do that really well. Like, you know, whenever, even if you're this person, even if we're on a dinner, like Lewis will ask this many questions, even if we're having dinner, and we'll go back and forth and I'll ask questions. But you're a really curious and inquisitive person in a positive sense. And that's why people always feel very comfortable around you to open up and share, because they feel that you're really listening.
Right.
And so I think that's a big part of it, is that when we're doing that. The second part is, even if you do all of that, there will be people that get offended.
Yes.
So even if you master the way of communicating and you really care and you do the research, there'll be people that get offended. And what you have to realize is that there are just so many more triggers right now.
So many.
To everyone's lives, and there are deep triggers there too. There's historic triggers. There's so much going on that you can't make it about you. And I think sometimes we're like, oh, how did they get offended me? I tried so hard. But it's like, don't make it about you, because there's so many more things at play here. There's so much more going on. So again, we try and reflect it because we want to be liked or considered to be supportive.
Yes.
But we're not realizing there's just so much more at play here.
So much more.
And so as long as you did your part and you tried and you acted, then that's great. But
this is something, you know, we talked about this a couple nights ago at your place, talking about detaching yourself, like being unattached to how other people react to you and respond to you, because it's very hard at times, if you're attached to the result of other people's opinions, to let it affect you. I'm one to blame for that as well.
Me too.
Like when I feel like people are coming at me, I'm like, oh, like chill out. I'm not trying to hurt anyone here, right? And one of the greatest things we can learn is to be unattached. That's what I've learned from you and so many other great people, is like, don't be attached to people hating on you or the triggers, because then you'll be staying in a suffering state.
yeah,
Like, you've got to be unattached. It's not easy.
No.
We're all human beings.
totally.
But that's something, I want to talk about that the next time.
Yeah, for sure.
That's something
For
we could do like
sure,
a whole
for sure.
masterclass on.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you a couple final questions.
Yes.
Your whole podcast is about on purpose. What's the difference between discovering your purpose, finding your purpose, living it, and living a purposeful life?
I think that living your purpose is where it's so much about you and your journey, and living a purposeful life is when you're now letting that overflow into everyone else's life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you want to find your purpose and you want to feel satisfied in that, but a purposeful life is where you are igniting other people's purposes and it's overflowing with that love and that compassion and gratitude. And that's hard because it takes time. And you can't expect people to do that while they're still filling up too. And I think sometimes everyone will always look like they're finished and they're done and they made it. It's like, no one's ever made it. And you speak to some of the most successful people in the world and even they don't feel they've made it. And so we are always doing both at the same time. You're always filling up your purpose and you're always trying to be purposeful at the same time, but you're not ever going to be fully in purpose and you're never fully going to be purposeful. It's all a symbiotic relationship that has to happen in parallel.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to your question?
Makes sense to me. I've got so many other questions I want to ask, but I want to be mindful of time. You've got a book out right now that is called Think Like a Monk. I've read this book. It's amazing. I want everyone to go get it. Go pick it up. Tag Jay when you pick it up. Tag me. Let us know that you got it. Let me know the insights that you found are helpful from it. I'm telling you, you will read this thing over and over again. It's really powerful. If you enjoyed this, you will love that. So that's action number one. I want people to go buy your book right now. Buy it for a friend, family member. The subtitle is Train Your Mind for Peace and Purpose Every Day. So if you feel out of purpose, out of peace, this will support you with amazing tools, science, research, everything. It's unbelievable. That's action number one. Action number two, go check out Jay's podcast, On Purpose, and subscribe over on Apple, Spotify, and also listen to the episode that I just did on your show, because most people don't get to hear me on my show that much because I'm interviewing. but I feel like I probably did the best interview with you.
You were in flow. I have to
was
say,
fun,
like
man.
you were in flow. I was just sitting there listening and absorbing. Everyone's gonna love that episode,
Yeah.
man. And it's you were so open, so vulnerable, but you had some great insights that people could really practice. And yeah,
fun.
definitely everyone should check it out. Yeah.
So go check out Jay's podcast. Check out that episode. Let me know what you think. And there's 2 other episodes that we have here from Jay in the past that are amazing. He's got his 3 truths, if you want to go listen to that, his definition of greatness. So go check out those so you can see the end of those as well. And I appreciate you, man. You're just, you're always got so much wisdom, so much love, so much just like peace. You bring peace to every space you go into.
Thank you, man.
And so I'm just so grateful for our friendship and for your time today. And I feel like we could go on for like master
I
class.
know,
Like every
man.
page, I'm like, this is a master
Well,
class.
we do when we're together.
I know.
We
We should start recording these
We
things.
spoke the other night for like
3-4
4
hours.
Yeah, it's just, and that's normal. Like that's normal for us. So, but that's what's so special about that. For me, it's those special parts of the friendship that make this more fun.
Yeah.
Make that more fun. It's like having private and public relationships are so beautiful to have both.
You know what's funny is I feel like I never run out of questions to ask you or myself when we're hanging out. It's like we're always finding new things to talk about.
Totally, always. Yeah, we never get bored.
We're always like talking about thoughts and beliefs and ideas and like
Yeah.
how to make the world better and
Yeah.
how do we impact more people.
How do we improve? What growth areas we have to...
what are we missing in our lives?
Yeah.
Like,
but you do that. You have that energy. Like that's what I mean. That Lewis on the podcast and Lewis behind the scenes, you're the same person. You're just inquisitive, curious, always
Yeah.
wanting to know. It's like we talk a lot about curiosity and asking questions, but I don't think we all do it enough in our daily lives.
Yeah.
You know, so
it really enriches relationships when you have a curious mind. Even with a partner, if you can continue to ask them interesting questions, different
Yeah.
questions, it's going to make you look at them in a different way, and the
Yeah.
relationship's going to continue to grow and evolve.
totally.
We've all heard the sayings, how do you journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, or how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, or there are all these sayings, and it goes back to the Bible and earlier, right? I mean, this is not new. These are not new sayings, but they're showing up in different forms. What's lost in those short descriptions, however, is that every step is not equivalent. If it were just that a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, everyone would pursue their goals. Everyone would push back against adversity. You can read the inspirational stories as many times as one needs, and I do think inspirational stories are of very high value. In fact, I think they're vicarious dopamine. I think they give us the sense that we could, which then orients us to the world again.
So right. Maybe it's possible for me.
That's right. So let's say, let's take the example of somebody who's...
but just to finish that story of, it's not about just taking a single step and one step at a time. Is it because there's adversities every 10 steps you go, and so it's harder and harder? So it's not just
it's just very nonlinear.
Yeah.
It's some days go, I know this from my scientific career, it's, some days it's easy, some days it's hard, it's all over the place, right? So I think the thing to remember is that dopamine is this incredibly powerful molecule that allows us to buffer the effort process. It allows us to be in effort longer, and it allows us to actually eventually enjoy the process of effort.
And not think about the reward, but just say, I'm enjoying the process.
Right. Well, you just described the first step. The first step in learning to attach dopamine to the effort process, which is the key operation in order to succeed, is to be very careful about how much you focus on the end goal. Keeping the goal in mind is important for like a proper orientation. You have to know the ultimate destination. But if at any point we were to evaluate our progress relative to that end goal, or if we don't know what the end goal is, there's a huge gap there. Right. And it can feel overwhelming.
And depressing, and I'm not good enough,
That's
and
right.
I should just give up. What am I doing this for?
That's right.
And those thoughts will affect us.
And they're very realistic, right? Yeah. I mean, as Carol will say, and other people have said in the psychology field, positive self-talk, oftentimes, unless you do it correctly, you're badly wrong. Lying to yourself won't work. Saying I'm a winner when you haven't
lost
or you haven't won yet is great, but that's not the most effective use of these systems.
Well, you're also being out of integrity with yourself. You're telling yourself a lie.
Right.
You're like, and then you're losing your ability to have confidence because you're just lying to yourself.
Right. And if it's really extreme, there's a name for it. It's called delusional, right? Right. And people will start to point that out, and then it becomes harder to recruit people into your goals. So I think the key thing is to attach that sense of reward to the effort process. It's saying, look, I am oriented in the right direction and rewarding the things you're not doing. I'm not back on my heels. I'm not just staying, in bed in the morning. A good example of this came to me recently. I have a good friend. He did 9 years in the SEAL teams. His name is Pat Dossett. And we were talking about, the Admiral McCraven thing, get up and make your bed. And, and they really do that. And I think the way it was described was, so at the end of the day, even if everything doesn't go well, your bed is still made. Mm-hmm. For me, that's not that big of a reward, frankly.
Right.
So I said that, and I
love it though. I make my bed.
I definitely make my bed in the morning. But I mean, going back and seeing that at the end of a hard day, it's not enough. I felt like there was something else there. So I asked him. He said, "Well, it's very interesting because part of it is about not just making your bed, but it's the things you're not doing." By making your bed. You're not lying in bed and ruminating. You're not back on your heels.
You're not on your phone.
That's right.
Yeah.
When you look at, and you have spent a lot of time with people in high-performing communities, mainly through some consulting work, but what you find is that, we can all either be back on our heels, flat-footed, or forward center of mass.
Forward, yeah.
And when you look at people who are in these high-performance communities, they try and keep their center of mass forward. Almost through what seem like trivial things like making your bed or making the cup of coffee, but it's not just about what you're doing, it's all the things you're not doing that can put you down the path of ruminating or put you down the path of unhealthy behavior. So the key to this is, if we want to be very concrete, we should probably focus on actions, and I'll use fitness as an example because it translates to everybody, whereas people's circumstances differ. Let's say somebody really wants to take on a fitness routine. They hate running, or they want to lose weight in a healthy way, this kind of thing. So we've all heard the example, well, you put your shoes by the door on day 1. Day 2, you put them on. Day 3, you go out the door. Day 4, you walk around the block, and then, and then eventually they're running marathons. Okay, great. But to sustain that behavior, or even to make the behavior pleasurable and to give you energy, the key is to subjectively reward those steps. So it's not going to be, let's say I go out and I run a mile, and my goal is to run 10 miles in a few weeks. The key is, as you're in the strain of that mile, the hard part, you want to tell yourself, this is the good part. This is the part that gives me energy. And I'll be very surprised if people don't actually feel like they could continue further. So it's a journey of 1,000 miles starts with is made up of, single steps. But the key is to reward the harder steps, not the easier ones, and not the ones where you get the thing that you want.
Don't reward yourself for putting your shoes on and taking a step outside.
You could if that was a huge barrier for you.
If it's very hard.
If it was very hard for you.
But running the 10 miles is hard.
Right. Find the wall and push a little bit further through that wall and reward that process. So this is why I think reps in the gym, the final reps, like reps to failure, are usually not the best example. First of all, most people aren't doing reps to failure, and it doesn't translate to young kids and stuff where they probably shouldn't be doing heavy reps to failure, this kind of thing. What you want, however, is if you're going to go there, to think about this is the hard part, because that's when adrenaline, norepinephrine are getting maxed out, and that's when you have an opportunity to bring dopamine in and teach those neural pathways to slam that back down. And I don't want to highlight them too much because they are a very niche and specialized community, but you look at people in special operations, you look at the process, like the whole evaluation process of who gets in and who doesn't. It's really about putting people into stress and seeing who can not just make it through that stress, but buffer that stress. Reward the process through teamwork, reward the process of stress through some internal dialogue that has everything to do with not being back on your heels, not being flat-footed, but center of mass forward. And I should also be clear, I'm not talking about everybody being super aggro and always like,
work. Yeah.
In fact, if you're spending too much epinephrine, if you're too much of an adrenaline junkie, you will burn out eventually. Unless you can find ways to recover yourself or to buffer that with dopamine. And the recovery process is especially important. There's a second reward system. So you've got the dopamine system, and I guess to really put a box around it, the subjective reward needs to be done at the hardest portion of a process. The tough conversation with a significant other, it's like when it's really tough and that's when you want to start telling yourself, this is the good part because I'm not speaking, or this is the good part because
I'm not reacting.
Right, I'm not reacting, or this is the good part because I'm probably not doing it correctly, but I'm on the right path, right? They're upset, they're not feeling your empathy, this kind of thing, or you're not really understanding what's going on, you're getting frustrated. But if you tell yourself, this is the neural pathway getting ground in there, like really dialed in, so that the next time I'm going to breeze right past this. Yeah. That's really how the process works. Because remember, no one comes along and drips dopamine in your ear, even if you get $1 billion, or you win a Nobel Prize, or you win the presidency. It's all internal. These neurochemicals are all internal. And while some of them are designed to be released in response to things very reflexively, like food, sex, sleep, all these things will trigger these neurochemicals. We have this big forebrain which allows us to place subjective context on things.
How do you do it then? How do you bring dopamine in your brain subjectively through daily conversation with yourself?
So there's a process I'm going through right now where I'm trying to write a book, and it's hard. And I was told that the harder it is, the better I'm probably doing it. And I was like, great. And my editor's ready to kill me, and because I'm slow, and I know, and I'm a very slow person. I drive people crazy. I'm like glacially slow because science is slow, and I like to get things right.
You don't want to rush it. Yeah.
I like to get things right, but I'm very proud of the fact that everything we've published, I can stand behind. It was the best we could do with the tools at the time, and I just know that when I look back on a writing career or a scientific career, I want to be able to say, every journal we put it in was rock solid. Everything was rock solid. We had fun doing it. The relationship. So I go slow.
Yeah.
But as a consequence, what I'm finding is there are a lot of interferences these days. I think social media is great. I teach neuroscience on social media because I think it's important to do public education.
But it's a distraction too.
But it's incredible. And it's incredible how much time and energy it can take. So what I've started doing now is I turn off my phone and I lock it in a safe. And I experience extreme anxiety.
Right?
It's so weird.
Why is that? Is it because it gives you so much dopamine that when you're not having it?
Well, this is scary because I actually think, brief anecdote, on the weekend I was driving, there's a kid that I mentor, and I picked up my phone and I was texting while I was driving. And he said to me, this is really embarrassing for me, he said, I wish you wouldn't text while you drive. And I put it down and I realized, this is crazy. I know that my life and his life is far more important, and the lives of the people around me are far more important than any text message, which means I wasn't doing it rationally. It's just pure reflex at this point. So I don't think I pick up the phone because I don't even know what I'm looking for there anymore. It's just become reflexive.
Wow.
So for me lately, the longer I can keep that phone in a safe and write on a grant or this book, what I tell myself is the agitation is good. At least I'm not doing that. And then I find that as I start to write and I get into the process, I start feeling good about it, and I'll pause and say, okay, I have control. I have ultimate control over my behavior. I can put that thing away. There might be a nuclear war out there, and I'm just doing this anyway. I have control over my thoughts, my feelings, and behavior. So I tell myself that, and then I find I have immense energy, and all I want to do is write. And I kind of tunnel into the process.
Wow.
And I think that sometimes people need to write these things out for themselves so it's really concrete. I think some people are so unskilled at subjective rewards that writing it out is really powerful.
So what would you write out for yourself as a subjective reward for this experience?
As long as I'm writing, I'm on the right path. As long as I'm not writing, I'm looking at my phone, I'm not on the right path. Because for me, the 2 or 3 things that are most important for my career are writing grants, working on this book manuscript, and writing scientific manuscripts. I mean, there are other things as well.
And anything else that you're not doing is holding you back from doing that.
That's right.
So you need to be focused, set our mass forward on doing those things.
That's right. So I don't do any jumping around, power poses, things like that. I will use tools to kind of ramp up my dopamine. There are certain songs that are really embedded in my emotional thing that go back to, when I was a, wild, skateboarding punk rock teenager that will get me fired up. And I think there's real utility. That's pure dopamine. That's just a dopamine.
Moments, but it's not sustainable. You have to subjectively keep yourself motivated, I guess. Right?
That's right. And then if I finish a chapter, I will stop for a moment and I'll just kind of smile and laugh at myself. I'm big on like self-reflection with humor and just think, this is crazy. My brain is under my control. There would be people out there that say there's no free will, but I do not believe that. I put my hands in a lot of brains. You stimulate certain brain areas, people do things. You stimulate other brain areas, people think things. Ultimately, unless you have electrodes in your head and someone's stimulating them, we are in control of our thoughts and behaviors. We can't control all of them, but my goal is to be as deliberate and non-reflexive as possible in life. That's my goal from when I wake up in the morning until I go to sleep.
How do we get to that place?
Little by little and by rewarding each thing. If you get up and I'll use the make the bed example, make the bed, you're not back on your heels, you make a cup of coffee, you sit down, you script out something in a journal, you exercise, maybe you call a relative that you think might need to hear from you or that you'd like to talk to. You do something in a deliberate way, just being deliberate and learning to push away the things that are trying to make you reflexive is so important.
Reflexive, same thing as reactive, or what's reflective?
Yeah, so there are two modes of brain operations. So now this is getting a little nitty gritty, but one is deliberate, where we're thinking duration, path, and outcome. What should I do? How long should I do it, and what's the outcome?
Deliberate.
Yeah.
Intentional.
And it feels like work. This is what people need to understand. That deliberate thought, deliberate action, writing the book, doing the workout you don't want to do, whatever it is, having the conversation, it's supposed to feel hard.
It's hard.
It's supposed to feel hard. But you should subjectively reward it so that you get better at doing that. So it's supposed to feel hard because it's associated with this release of these neurochemicals that create this agitation. The mental strain you feel when you're learning something is the trigger for neuroplasticity, for your brain to change.
Say that again, the mental strain you feel while doing something is the what?
Is the trigger for neuroplasticity.
Which neuroplasticity allows you to expand your mind to do more things.
That's right. So neuroplasticity is a process of taking something where there's duration, path, and outcome, where I'm working hard, I'm thinking hard, maybe it's a hard conversation, maybe it's a business plan, maybe it's a scientific career. And the goal of neuroplasticity is to make things reflexive so you don't have to think about them, right?
For instance, I just started taking Spanish class 101, and it's extremely hard. It makes me want to say, why am I doing this?
Right.
This is going to take me years until I'm conversational. Who knows how long until I'm fluent? If it's this hard as like this stage, man, is it ever going to get easier? I have those moments every time I'm doing class. I'm like, this sucks.
Right.
Because I'm like, I'm 37. Can I learn this language at this point? It's so much easier when you're 5.
Yep.
Now it's almost impossible. I watched your video on this a couple of days ago on social media. And the video you talked about this is, yes, it's harder when you're older to expand your neuroplasticity, but what I'm hearing you say is like, it's the only way to live. Is the older you get, you need to constantly be expanding it. Otherwise, you'll be going backwards.
That's right. So, when you want to learn something new like Spanish or a new physical skill, your mind shifts over. The forebrain comes on and says, okay, we're going to pay attention to things. And now what am I doing? And
I get so tired.
And we start doing evaluative stuff to other people, to ourselves. And you can start using all sorts of examples like, wait, I was a professional athlete in your case, or I want to be clear, I was never a professional athlete, but you were a professional athlete. You've been successful in other regimes of life, but it still feels like effort, right?
Yeah.
And so, but that effort is because two things are happening. One is adrenaline, epinephrine is being released. So it doesn't feel great.
It's not fun.
It's like, And then, in addition to that, by bringing focus to something, you're recruiting a neuromodulator called acetylcholine, which is the molecule of focus. Now, it's important.
Which takes energy and effort.
It takes energy and effort. You feel it in your body and in your brain. And it tends to acetylcholine will highlight the areas of your brain that are active during that learning phase when the teacher's talking or you're talking and making that effort. It's paying attention to how you're moving your mouth, what it sounds like to you, feedback cues. And it's marking those brain areas for change. And then later, when you sleep or when you work out or when you're having a conversation with somebody, that's actually when the brain changes occur.
So not during the actual activity.
That's right.
It's when you're not doing the activity, resting or recovering, when it starts to expand or
that's
when
right.
it starts to
it's
grow.
So neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to change in response to experience, and is the main way in which we go from deliberate action, duration, path, outcome stuff to reflexive action and thought. That process has two parts. One is the trigger, which is in adults is triggered by focus and attention and even a heightened state of agitation. The more frustrated you feel, the more you're actually triggering learning. It's saying this is important, this is important. Because the brain just wants to do whatever it wants to do. It needs to cue itself to, this must need to change. And then the second part is deep relaxation, meditation, in particular a form of meditation called yoga nidra, which we could talk about, but forms of deep relaxation, deep sleep, like slow wave sleep. That's when the connections between neurons, called synapses, actually get stronger. That's when the connections that you don't want get removed. And that's also in certain cases where you get new neurons actually born in your brain to help these circuits speak Spanish.
This is why in sports growing up, I remember I would go to like basketball camps in the summer and I'd always learn new footwork. And I always just wanted to be like the fancy guy doing like whatever, finger roll layups or something as a kid. But then we would go to these basketball camps and we'd just work on the fundamentals and the footwork and like all this different stuff. And I remember being in the moment, it being very frustrating and challenging. I was like, I don't get this. And I would suck at it. But then the next day I would come back and I would all of a sudden like have it after a few times of doing it. But I never learned how to do it in the moment. It was always like, okay, I might have got it once, but then I fumbled on it. It was the next day or the next few days where it's like, oh, I can do this.
It just shows up.
It shows up.
It just shows up.
And that's because when the mind is able to relax, it's then making the connections on how to do that thing.
Yeah, so in deep sleep and rest is when the connections actually get built up. It's sort of like with resistance training, right? The gym is a little misleading. Resistance training because people get the famous pump, and so they get a visual glimpse into what they might look like later. But then of course it goes back down, right? But actual hypertrophy, the enlargement of the muscle fibers and the strengthening of the neural connections to those fibers is later when you sleep. So it's the same thing with neuroplasticity.
Yeah. How important is it for us to constantly be learning and challenging our mind the older we get?
Well, I believe it's very important for living a full life. And my hero in this, two heroes actually, is I would say Richard Feynman, the great physicist, who had a very playful attitude about learning. That's one thing that I really should illustrate. If you are in frustration and strain,
just have fun.
A sense of play is great because in play you have focus, you have intention and alertness, and it keeps you light enough that there's that dopamine release. Dopamine is released in play for a reason, because kids and animals, young animals and young children, learn social interactions through play.
Yeah.
A puppy bites another puppy, and the puppy barks out loud. That's why they have those sharp puppy teeth, to say that's too much of a bite. Then they play a little bit more. They're finding the boundaries. They're finding the limits to which they can use physical force for hurting another or just for playing. They learn soft bite. Play in animals is an ancient form of sampling these neural pathways. And as adults, we tend to be more demanding of ourselves. We don't tend to embrace as much play. Richard Feynman is somebody who really incorporated a lot of play into his adult life. He learned how to, in addition to being a Nobel Prize winning physicist, he also played bongo drums. He learned how to sketch and paint late in his life. He did float tanks. He was kind of a wild man, but he had a lot of fun, and he was a lifetime learner. So I think it's important because it's a great way to learn dopamine release, and it's a great way to expand one's experience of life.
This is when I was in Poland with Wim Hof earlier this year. I took a group of like 13 guys, and we were all nervous to get into this ice tub together for 10 minutes, like up to here. And for the first 2 minutes, it was not fun. We were just like, this sucks, this is cold. But then all of a sudden we were like, let's have fun. We're gonna be in here for 8 more minutes. We might as well try to enjoy it. So we started chanting, we started singing, we started just in a rhythm together, like smiling, and it was like, it's more enjoyable. It's still gonna be challenging, but you might as well try to have the most fun in the challenge than just suffer, right?
Yeah, team and community, not by coincidence, is a powerful tool for buffering stress. Again, look at high-performing teams like SEAL teams or other special operations units. Team is a big part of it for being functional in the actual job.
It'd almost be impossible to do it alone if you're a Navy SEAL, right?
Yeah, there are other divisions of special operations where actually it's more focused on solo missions.
That's hard.
And so there are people that are very good at that, but teamwork is a great way to buffer the stress response.
Yeah.
And so earlier you asked, is there any way to make it not cold? I guess the answer is no, but there is a way to make the cold not painful.
Right.
And so that's where dopamine intervenes. The other thing that's important, because we talked about neuroplasticity, you trigger it with focus and energy, and effort and strain, is, children can learn very easily. Their brain is hyperplastic, and very quickly the whole job of the young brain is to take things that it's taught and very quickly pass it over to reflex, including morals and beliefs.
Automatic.
And this is what's scary is also, the things that kids hear and they believe and they're exposed to, those beliefs become reflexive. Now, around age 25 or so, the brain is still plastic and forever for the entire life, but then you need more focus and you need what's called self-directed plasticity, neuroplasticity. Self-directed meaning the only person that can change their brain for the better after about age 25 is the actual person. You can't force neuroplasticity on somebody, positive neuroplasticity. So the other element that's really important to plasticity is this deep rest phase. And it's associated with the release of the molecule neuromodulator serotonin. Serotonin is a reward molecule, just like dopamine, except that it's released in the brain in response to the subjective experience that we have enough resources. So when we eat a big meal, or we enjoy, even better, when we enjoy a meal with friends or family, and it just feels like one of those incredible evenings, you know, you're reset. It's that feeling of being reset. Has an antidepressive effect. When we are, when you hold, you know, if you hold your child or a partner that you love, or your dog, if you love your dog, there's this feeling of having enough. And so whereas dopamine is really the molecule that makes us look at things outside the boundaries of our skin, like to be in pursuit of things, it really is the pursuit motivation molecule. Serotonin is really about feeling like we have enough in our immediate environment. And it's so powerful because unless that serotonin box is checked off periodically, we cannot lean back into the dopamine outward pursuit process for very long.
So we need serotonin.
Absolutely.
To feel more, complete, whole? Safe.
Once you feel, this is where people, you know, I think that the go-getters get it wrong, no pun intended, where getting after it and being hard driving is really important. But, you know, we've all seen examples of this. I've seen a number of these in Silicon Valley, friends that did very well in tech, get to the point where they reach that finish line and then they don't have a whole lot of people to share that with, and they end up very isolated and depressed. And then they go through this whole cycle of trying to find themselves. And you need to balance serotonin and dopamine, maybe across the day, maybe across the week. You know, I think in religious practices, all religions really, there's a kind of Sabbath, there's a rest period, you know, for many, or I think all of them. That makes sense because there needs to be a renewal, whether or not people have a religious practice or not. There needs to be a renewal,
a recovery
to recover the immune system. You can't drive the immune system all week. You need to recover it.
This is why I love sports analogies, because there's a preseason, there's a season, there's a postseason where you're really in high stress and emotion, and then there's a postseason. There's an off season for a reason. You can't be in season 10 years in a row. You've got to find time to relax and have a bye week. It's like, if you don't have a bye week, you're probably gonna get injured eventually. So it's just like trying to create that in your own life.
Is, you know, they've got their career, they've gone through school and sports, they've been okay at certain things, but they choke in other things, and they still have fear, and they're maybe in their late 20s, 30s, or 40s. They're kind of set in their habits and their ways. Is it possible to go from being a choker your whole life to now not choking anymore in different areas? Or you're kind of trained choker, you're always going to be a choker?
Yeah, well, I think just as you're not born a choker or thriver, you can change your brain. And there's an old myth that our brains are pretty static once we get above a certain age, especially. I mean, I guess it goes with you can't teach old dogs new tricks, but the neuroscience research shows that that's just not true. Like, brains can change at any time. If you have someone practice juggling for 6 weeks, the areas of their brain that control motion will grow more connections, right? It's just like anything else. We know that if you practice meditation, how your brain talk to each other, grow more connections. Your brain is pretty plastic, and I think you can learn these things.
What's the challenge you still face today where you choke?
You know, I'm pretty good at speaking on my feet and speaking in front of other people. So I don't really feel the pressure as much there. But there's always situations maybe where I'm in a meeting where I know someone doesn't agree with me, and I have to get them sort of to see my point of view. And I find that I have to calm myself down. Like, I want to just talk, but I have to make myself listen. And when I'm feeling stressed, I want to talk. Like, I want to just be in control of the situation. And I find myself really having to guide myself to, like, step back and hear what they say. Because oftentimes when we're stressed, we don't listen, right? And this is true in the medical profession. Doctors have been shown to not listen to each other about communicating information. And it's not even that you don't listen, you don't even know you haven't listened. And a great example that has happened to all of us, like, have you ever been at a party or someone introduces themselves to you and you realize right after you don't remember their name, like right after. And the research shows that it's not because you forgot it, it's that you probably weren't even listening when they said it. Like, we never got it in. Because we were thinking about ourselves, we were focused on ourselves or how they were looking at us, and we just weren't paying attention.
Yeah, it's the art of paying attention, and listening is a powerful tool. How do we prepare ourselves on a daily basis to listen more, to not stress, not try to be in control, especially during, I feel like right now with everything that's happening in the world, everyone's just yelling at each other for their point of view as opposed to this allowing for conversation to be had. How do we get to a place in society to kind of allow ourselves to listen to each other when we're just like, no, we need to win. We need to be right on either side of any conversation.
Yeah, it's a hard question, right? And one that we're not doing so well at solving at any place. I mean, I think part of it is figuring out what's the most important thing to get across, right? I think we often want to just get all this information across, but like, what are your 3 points, or what's the one most important thing that you don't care about anything else, right? I talk to students about this when you give a presentation. Like, people aren't going to remember everything. What do you want them to walk away with? What's the one thing? And if you can focus on that, then it frees up your attention to listen to someone else, right? Then you're not thinking about all the different things you want to get across. It's just that one thing. And I think it really does come back down to that. Like, you don't walk away from any interview remembering everything. You remember a couple take-home points. And it's liberating to come out thinking, okay, I'm going to give this big presentation. I'm going to try and convince people of X, Y, or Z. This is all I really care about. I'm going to interview for a job. I just want them to know this thing.
Yeah. What's something you wish more people knew about this topic that people don't ask you enough about, or you don't hear people talking about enough?
I mean, I think the idea that you have to practice figuring out how to listen to people who have opposite views is really important. It's not an easy skill. Like, it doesn't just come to you, just like pole vaulting. You had to like work on it, right? And it's hard to have conversations where you feel uncomfortable. We already talked about people not going to pushing to beat discomfort in sports. It's true here too. Like, it's so much easier to talk to people who agree with you. And that's essentially what happens on social media, right? We're in this circle of people who agree with what we're saying for the most part, and it's just like echoing and reaffirmed. Mm-hmm. So how do you go out of your way to find people who don't agree with you, to have conversations that are going to make you uncomfortable? And it's actually okay to be uncomfortable. I talk about this all the time at Barnard. I think it's okay to be uncomfortable in the classroom. Like, it's okay to be pushed. We don't want hate. We don't want, in that way, we don't want people to be fearful. But being uncomfortable, it makes your ideas better. If you have to argue your point and you have to get it across, it makes whatever you do better. That's what academic greatness is about.
What do you see as possible for people in the future if they were able to actually use these tools you talk about under pressure?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to continue to push the limits of what humans can do. I mean, look at all we're doing in this anxiety-provoking time to advance science, right? We're having difficult conversations about structural racism and class issues that we haven't really confronted in the same way. And it's going to be uncomfortable and not everyone's going to agree, but I think we're also seeing some really fantastic aspects of human nature come out of this, along with all the negativity. Yeah. So I have hope, I have optimism. I think a lot of people have gotten used to being uncomfortable just in general. I mean, this is something we never would have expected with quarantine and COVID, and I think it's going to allow us to meet challenges in the future. Yeah. So I'm optimistic in that way.
That's great. I got a few final questions for you. This one is about thoughts, feelings, and self-talk. Which one has more power over the body? The way we feel in a moment of like tremor and anxiety and stress, how our thoughts are conditioning our body, or what we're saying to ourselves with our self-talk? Which one, and how do we marry all 3 in our favor?
So I'm a little biased because I'm a cognitive scientist. So I really study what's going on in the head, right? So I think that's really important. And I will say that The reason I think it's so important is because we can change how our body and those feelings, how we interpret them, right? And when we change how we interpret them, it affects us in different ways. So if you have sweaty palms and a beating heart, and I say, oh my God, that's a sign that you're really, this is going to be tough and you're about to fail. Like, you're obviously feeling a lot of pressure. Saying that to you is going to make you more likely to fail. But instead, if I say to you, hey, that sweaty palms and beating heart are actually a sign that you're awake and ready to go. Did you know that your heart is shunting blood to your brain so you can focus on the right things and get rid of those negative thoughts? Then that increase in physiological response is actually going to be a good thing, right? And so how we feel, that beating heart is the same when you're excited and happy as when you're scared. The physiological response is the same. It's just how you interpret it. And so there's so much power in that.
Yeah.
And so reminding yourself, this sweaty palms and beating heart mean I'm ready to go. And I always say, look, if your heart wasn't beating, you'd be dead, right? I mean, you're getting ready for what's so important in what you're doing. It's good you're amped up. If you weren't amped up, you wouldn't be putting your best foot forward. It matters, just saying that.
Before we continue this video, make sure to subscribe below and turn on the notification bell right now so you don't miss out on these great videos every single day. Move on from the story, or how do you do it? Do you live with a lot of worry each day, or are you so good now at just saying, this doesn't matter, this is in the past, or I'm concerned about something that's not going to happen potentially in the future, so let me get back to present? Like, how do you not worry?
Well, so I mean, everything for me, sort of at my level of practice, I've done a lot of meditation practice, but there's apparently much more to do in my case.
Because you still worry?
Yeah, well, no. So there's no emotion that I don't experience, right? So I can experience intense anger, intense sadness, depression, worry, all of it. And the difference for me, I mean, this is something that I wouldn't have but for the fact that I've really learned to practice mindfulness. The difference is when my suffering becomes at all intense, it functions as a kind of mindfulness alarm, right? And so the truly kind of mediocre path for me is to be within the range of sort of normal annoyance and normal desire.
Mid-level suffering.
Yeah, where the alarm's not going off, right. And I'm just, kind of a normal jerk, within those bounds, right? Like,
a little anxious here and there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I go to the dry cleaner and discover that they, destroyed my suit, right? It's like this in the scheme of things, this does not matter at all, right? But
you're frustrated. You're annoyed.
It's like, okay, what do you do? So it's like attention is captured, and when attention is captured by that, I'm the same guy I always was, right?
You're always a jerk.
Yeah, well, just like whatever. It's like, or attention can be captured pleasantly by something that you're like, oh God, I mean, this is the best bagel I've ever had, right? So I'm just going for the food. And there's no perspective, like I'm not, the consciousness is trimmed down to just the pleasure or pain of that experience for that moment, right? And all of those moments for me have the character of being, they really are deeply analogous to being asleep and dreaming and not knowing that you're dreaming, right? So the reality is you're in your bed, prone or supine, or you're in a situation that's completely unlike the situation you think you're in, and you think you're on a beach, talking to somebody, or arguing with somebody, or you showed up at a conference and you didn't have your pants, whatever it is, and you're relating to people who don't exist, right? And we're psychotic when we're dreaming. We're completely confused, right? Unless it's a lucid dream, right? Which is its own interesting experience. But assuming your dreams are not lucid, you are completely unaware of a larger the true larger context to your experience, and you're merely hostage to whatever is playing out in that dream, right? So. And that most of experience that is mediated by thought, apart from mindfulness, most experience has that character. So for me, once you turn up the dial on the intensity of the experience,
It's your alarm.
Then I begin. Then something else comes online for me more reliably, and then you can, if you really know how to meditate, you can break the spell decisively in an instant.
Yeah.
And in that instant, you have woken up. I mean, you're no longer in bed asleep, right? And so I can do that. I mean, there's sort of I guess there are two landmarks I would suggest to notice. I mean, if somebody's practicing meditation and they're really getting into it, I would say that there are kind of 2 points that I would flag as points of real durable progress. The first is just to notice the difference between being lost in thought and clearly paying attention to experience, prior to thought, prior to concepts. And so that's sort of small m mindfulness that people learn, once they start to practice. And that has the consequences of, if you do that enough, if you keep punctuating your ordinary experience with that just non-judgmental, non-reactive acceptance of what the present moment is, right? So you feel anxiety, you feel irritation, you become mindful, you just become interested in that feeling, in just the neurophysiology of it, the sensation of it. You get out of your thinking about all the reasons why you should feel anxious or you should feel irritated. You just become merely present with the experience, and then you notice this kind of half-life. It just dissipates, right? And that's there's a certain kind of freedom in that. There's another point which in my meditation app I spent a lot of time trying to push people toward, earlier than is conventional. There's another point where you realize that the feeling of self, the feeling that there's a subject in the center of experience, is an illusion, right? That it's actually not there. If you can look for it deliberately enough.
But we are an illusion.
Yeah, it's not that your body is an illusion. It's not that people are illusions, but the sense that you have that you are a subject in your head, kind of riding around in the body, like that you're behind your face in this moment. Like you and I are talking. I'm looking at you. The default situation is for you to feel implicated by my gaze. Like I'm looking at something. Like you're on the other side of my gaze.
Right. I mean, my mind is, or my consciousness,
well, whatever.
This
is you. It's you're. There's something. If you say something and I get a weird expression on my face, like I don't believe you or whatever, you can read that back into it. Sort of. It falls back to you. It's like it points back to you. Like if I point at you, it feels like I'm pointing at something. I mean, this feels rude. This is normally a rude gesture, right?
Right.
So it's like you feel like you're over there. You're behind your face, right? And that's what we call I. I mean, the personal pronoun for most people refers to that feeling of being in the head. It doesn't refer to the whole body. It doesn't refer to, because people don't feel identical to their whole bodies. They feel like passengers in their bodies. They feel like subjects. They feel like the center of experience. And I mean, the real goal of meditation is to recognize that is an illusory position. That's actually not your position. There really is just experience. There's just consciousness and its contents, and there's no center to it. And so at a certain point, mindfulness can become the experience of just cutting through that illusion, right? So it's not that you're having to be strategically mindful of anxiety or anything else that you may notice that you want to have dissipate. You suddenly recognize that there's just no center to experience. And then your meditation practice becomes recognizing that in each moment. And that has the consequence of that's synonymous with not being lost in thought in that moment. It's synonymous with not giving any more energy, therefore, to this reaction you're having. It's synonymous with no resistance to whatever is appearing, right? So you're actually free even before the physiology of the negative state dissipates. So let's say you're angry, you're feeling road rage, you recognize there's no center. Your freedom in that moment isn't even contingent upon the anger going away. It's like, because anger at that moment is no longer anger. Anger is just, it's just tension.
Sure.
You know, it's just tension in your face. You know, like you could have tension in your face because of you had some dental procedure, right? But it's like it literally, it just completely disconnects the sense of your own well-being and expansiveness, because again, the center has dropped out. There's just consciousness and its contents, right? And it doesn't actually, and so this is, again, this can sound paradoxical, but then from that point of view, you know, the kind of experience I had on MDMA doesn't even improve one situation. I mean, then, because when there's just consciousness without a center, on some level, there's no. I mean, this is the truth here that I'm alluding to. I mean, that the jargon in Buddhism is this, the truth of emptiness, right?
Sure.
There's nothing. There is no thing, right? Everything is just. I mean, so to take an analogy of that works for me. Have you ever gone to a restaurant where you have there's one wall that is like a kind of perfect and perfectly clean floor to ceiling mirror, and for most of the meal you've been assuming that the restaurant is twice the size that it actually is, right? So there's a bunch of people over there that you just thought were people, but you know at some point in the meal you recognize it's just half the size, right? And that's just glass and it's just a wall of light, right?
It's an illusion.
Yeah. And so that transition where you like if someone just walks up and puts their hand on the glass and in that moment, all the stuff you thought was happening there, you know, someone could have been having an argument, right? Or like someone could, you know, physically assault someone there. Now, forget it. This is where the analogy breaks down because you know there's something happening in the real world. But what happens when you touch the mirror and equalize all of that as just a display of light? You, on some level, everything has become equalized. The ugly things are the same as the beautiful things, right? There's just it's just light, you know, and so that's a good analogy for the freedom you can experience when the illusoriness of the self drops out of consciousness. It's like for that moment, and it might only be a moment. I mean, the course of practice, once you're able to practice in that way, is really just about punctuating your life with brief moments of that, you know, 100 moments like that over the course of a day or an hour, right? It's not about, at least not, you know, anytime soon for most of us, it's not about spending an hour in that state, right? But being able to punctuate life with that insight, it really does change the game, because then in each one of those moments you realize you're not, life isn't about seeking to become happy, right? It's not like you can only be happy. You can only be free in this moment. There's only ever this moment. Now.
Not seeking for the future.
What you have is this moment, and then your thoughts about the past and the future. That's always been true, and that will always be true for as long as you have any experience at all. So it's, you're either looking over the shoulder of this moment for what's coming, you know, worrying about it, or greedily, you know, kind of reaching out to the thing you want. And I mean, so much of life, you know, 99.9% of life for most of us is seeking certain experiences and getting them and feeling kind of the briefest moment of gratification. That like we unite with the object of desire for barely a second, you know, and then we're on to the next thing, or then we're even the thing we desired, if it persisted longer, would become undesirable. I mean, just imagine like you know, you're going for the bowl of ice cream, you're getting sort of the peak taste of it. Imagine if that taste never went away, right? Like that's the pleasure, you know, that's not the pleasure you want. And that would be intolerable. I mean, you'd go to a doctor's. Like I had a bowl of chocolate ice cream last week, and I can't get this taste of chocolate out of my mouth, right? I mean, so what happens is that you take a bite of ice cream that you thought you wanted more than anything in that moment, but actually it's a little too much, and then you reach for a glass of water and you wash it out at a certain point, right? Like it's
Right.
not, you know, on some level, all of these things we want are a mirage, right? You know, you get, you know, whatever it's like you wanted a new watch. Right. And you want to be associated with this object, and you went shopping for it, and you finally got, it's like, this is exactly how I wanted it to look on my wrist, and boy, am I happy with this. And then, like, you know, you have these brief moments of interaction with it, but when you actually drill down on what the experience is like, I mean, the experience of being satisfied with something in sensory space, it is kind of paradoxical and insubstantial. And the thing we actually want is a good enough excuse to totally relax into the present, like to get rid, to fulfill the desire, so that we're no longer feel
Anxious.
desire.
Yeah, interesting.
You want to be free of desire, right? You want to be free of all of your problems. You know, you want your to-do list to be all checked off and then empty, and those become peak moments, right? So but the problem is we associate the experience of completely giving up the war and being completely satisfied in the present. The brief moments we touch that, you know, and you know, in positive psychology, many of these, you know, states are called flow states. Those brief moments where we're not worried about anything, right? We associate that with some, you know, enormous effort we made to get here, right? And yet that is in fact the way consciousness already is, if we can just pay attention to it. And that's why meditation becomes a kind of the ultimate hack of in how one can pursue one's well-being, because it's just true that consciousness is that way. And yet we're spending all of our time seeking to have a good enough reason to realize that. It's like if I could just win the Nobel Prize, I'd feel good enough about myself that I wouldn't feel like I would have to, you know, do anything.
I could stop everything else.
Like just, you know, there would be no
But then you
egocentric,
feel like,
you know, grandiosity program that I would need to run because I'd have a Nobel Prize. But
then you'd be like, well, what's next? And how do I stay relevant?
And that's exactly what happens to everyone who wins the Nobel Prize. What happens is
I get depressed.
Someone says, "What are you going to do next?" Right? And
you're like, I just won the Nobel Prize. What else can I do?
And and the half-life of those peak experiences is incredibly short. You know, it's
a moment.
in the best case, it's days, right? But in reality, it's unwinding, you know, over the course of minutes.
If you're looking for more greatness in your life, make sure to check out this video right here. And also check out our free PDF, The 3 Secrets to Unlock the Power of Your Mind to help you change your life. Download it right here.
When you reach a goal, you're going to act like you're already there. It's already happened intellectually the second you think about it. It's already happened emotionally when you're emotionally involved with it. So it's only a period of time until it manifests in physical form.